Chapter 161. In front of Boiwanhu's mausoleum, Chinko Hall and the city guards were confronting each other. Go Huarong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He knew that there must be a traitor on his side. Zhonglin only came today, which meant that he had just learned the news. That excluded Chinko Hall and the people who came the day before yesterday. The several leaders around him had been with him all the time and had no chance to pass on the news. The people of Liu Manor were all arrogant and disdained to leak the news at all. Then, it could only be the rogue cultivators who left the city first. The traitor must be among them. Unfortunately, there was no time for him to find the traitor. Go Huarong could only glare fiercely at the rogue cultivators. At this time, Zhonglin spoke. Hall Master Go, the news of Boiwanhu's mausoleum was spread by the city lord mansion. Otherwise, even if you have the map in your hand, it would be a waste of paper. Since we're all here and the entrance is open, why don't we go in and explore together? That sounds nice. We spent so much effort to find the mausoleum, and you want to reap the benefits with just a few words? Isn't that ridiculous? Go Huarong said unceremoniously. Zhonglin shook his head and said, Hall Master Go, if we continue to delay, I'm afraid we won't even have the chance to go in together. Go Huarong frowned when he heard this. Immediately, he thought of something and his face changed slightly. Lung Shiqi rolled his eyes and also thought of the meaning of Zhonglin's words. That was rogue cultivators. There are now a large number of rogue cultivators gathered in Shangyang City, and only a few of them were recruited by Chinko Hall and the City Lord Mansion. There were hundreds and thousands of rogue cultivators in the city. Lung Shiqi and the others disguised themselves and went out of the city in batches, so they naturally did not attract the attention of the rogue cultivators. However, the city guards went out of the city with great fanfare. No matter how stupid the rogue cultivators were, they would know that Boiwanhu's mausoleum must be here. It would not be long before a large number of rogue cultivators arrived. Those rogue cultivators might be scrupulous about the people of Tianyan Tower and Liu Manor, and even give some face to the city guards, but they would never give face to Chinko Hall. Apart from that, there was another huge hidden danger, which was another third-rate sect, the Hao-Yi sect. The Hao-Yi sect didn't come into contact with any forces after entering Upper Yang City. They just stayed in the inn and were probably on their way here. In the end, Go Huarong made a concession. However, he put forward the condition of letting the city guards enter first. At first glance, this approach seemed a little stupid. It was equivalent to giving away the initiative, but in fact, it was a good idea. That was because there were bound to be some traps in the mausoleum. There might even be formations and prohibitions. The first person to enter would be equivalent to stepping on a mine. Zhonglin glanced at Eugeniu, who was beside him. Seeing his unapproachable look, he thought about it and agreed to Go Huarong's condition. Soon after, the people of Chinko Hall opened up a small path. When the city guard arrived at the pitch-black entrance of the mausoleum, several dozen city guard with shields surrounded the others and stepped into the mausoleum step by step. After that, Go Huarong and Luo Manor entered together. Lung Shiqi was at the back of the group. He followed everyone into the legendary mausoleum of Marquis Boiwanhu without any sense of presence. As soon as he entered the mausoleum, Lung Shiqi felt a gust of cold wind. It was obviously a gentle breeze, but it made his body feel cold from the inside out. He looked up, but the mausoleum was pitch black, and he couldn't see anything. Huff! Huff! At this time, torches lit up one after another in front of them. Go Huarong was obviously well prepared. With the help of the light from the torches, Lung Shiqi saw that they were in a passageway that was neither wide nor narrow. The walls on both sides of the passageway were bare. However, Lung Shiqi noticed that there were a lot of traces of heavy objects on the ground. However, these traces were not so clear over the years. Then Lung Shiqi pulled down the hood on his head, covering most of his face. Then his eyes turned blue and white as he activated Byakugan. Previously, he activated Byakugan outside the mausoleum, but it was blocked and he couldn't see the situation inside. Now that he was inside, Byakugan could see most of the layout of the mausoleum, but there were still some places that he couldn't see through. At this moment, In Lung Shiqi's vision, there were several traps not far in front of this passageway, but he didn't say anything. Sure enough, after a dozen breaths, there was a ding, ding, dang, dang sound mixed with a few screams. It was the city guards walking in front who accidentally triggered the trap. Hearing this, Go Huarong sneered with a hint of schadenfreude and asked everyone to stop. After there was no sound in front of them, everyone continued to move forward. It didn't take long for them to see the ground full of arrows and the bodies of several guards. Go Huarong said coldly, "Serves you right." At this time, Lung Shiqi, who was walking at the back, suddenly moved his body and leaned against the wall on the right. Because he was walking at the back and everyone's attention was attracted by the front, no one noticed his strange move. He did this because he had already used Byakugan to discover that there was actually a trap here. However, this trap was very sinister. It wasn't activated once it was triggered, but after it was triggered a second time. This way, they could guard against the second batch of people who entered and returned. There was a soft caw sound. Someone had triggered the trap. Suddenly, the wall above the passageway suddenly split into two sides, and then countless sharp spikes fell down. What was even more terrifying was that these spikes were shining with spiritual light. Everyone was startled. Go Huarong immediately shouted, "Not good. Run." The spikes didn't cover the entire passageway, and there was still some space on both sides. Everyone immediately hid on both sides of the passageway. Unfortunately, most of these people thought that the trap had been triggered by the city guards, so they weren't too vigilant. Even though they were warned, they were still half a step too late and finally died after being pierced by countless spikes. Go Huarong and Luo Xiuwen's faces turned pale when they saw this scene. They didn't expect such a trap, and they were caught off guard. What was worse was that this trap actually killed about 30% of the people. Among them were two disciples of Luo Yu Manor. All of this happened too suddenly. Even Luo Xiuwen didn't have time to do anything. Otherwise, he would have had a chance to save the two disciples. Now, some people had died before the tomb was found, and they had lost even more people than the city guards. They were at a disadvantage all of a sudden. Lung Shiqi also pretended to be panicked. He was still inconspicuous in the crowd. Chapter 162. The people from Chinko Hall and Luo Yu Manor had triggered the second mechanism, which naturally attracted the attention of the city guards and Tianyan Tower. Zhong Lin had a puzzled look on his face, but a glint flashed across Yu Jinyu's eyes. She said, "So there's a mechanism that can be triggered twice. This mechanism is extremely complicated to set up. It seems like this mausoleum is not as simple as we thought." Zhong Lin said, "Elder Yu is really knowledgeable. I admire you." Yu Jinyu did not speak and did not want to talk to him. Zhong Lin's expression stiffened, but he did not say anything. He just instructed his men to be more careful. On Lung Shiqi's side, Luo Xiuwen, who rarely spoke along the way, said unhappily, "Hall Master Go, since we have entered the mausoleum, let's split up. Luo Yu Manor will stay behind and help Hall Master Go block the rogue cultivators who are coming." Go Huarong knew that he was going to take the thunder for Luo Yu Manor. He wanted to refuse, but he could not because he could not afford to offend Luo Xiuwen. He had to rely on him. This was the difference in strength. It was also the huge difference between a small gang and a spirit cultivator sect. Go Huarong had no choice but to nod his head with a grim expression. Next, Chinko Hall and the loose cultivators they recruited walked in front, while the remaining 9 cultivators from Fallen Feathers Manor walked behind them. This time, every one of them took one step at a time, moving with extreme caution. Lung Shiqi had a headache. Originally, he was at the back and could use the supercilious eyes to observe more. Now that he was in the middle, especially with Luo Xiuwen behind him, he did not dare to make any small moves. He was afraid that this Spirit Pulse Realm Master would notice something. Then, they triggered 1 or 2 second mechanisms in the passage. But because everyone was very careful this time, only a few rogue cultivators died. At the end of the passage was a huge tomb chamber. It was so big that people mistook it for a square. When Lung Shiqi and the rest arrived, They saw the city guard standing neatly at the side. Beside them were people from Tianyan Tower and some rogue cultivators. Zhong Lin heard the noise and turned to look. When he saw that many people from Qingkou Hall had died, he felt a sense of relief. But his face was still very serious. Not only him, but Go Huarong, Luo Xiaowen, and Lung Shiqi also had grave expressions. This was because there were over 1,000 humanoid things standing in this huge tomb. These things looked no different from ordinary people, but they were all lifeless like statues. Their eyes were also staring straight ahead, which was a bit creepy. What was even stranger was that these people were all wearing armor and holding spears in their hands. They were like a group of Yin soldiers. Luo Xiaowen said softly, "Could this be a corpse puppet? Does Mr. Luo know what these things are?" Go Huarong asked tentatively. Luo Xiaowen did not hide anything and said, "I've seen it in a secret scroll in the village. This corpse puppet is a variant of the puppet technique. It was created by the corpse refining sect a few hundred years ago. This kind of corpse puppet used living people as materials to refine them into puppets. Moreover, they couldn't die during the refining process. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. After the refining was successful, the corpse puppet could still exert more than half of its strength before it was born. Coupled with the corpse refining sect's spiritual techniques, it could be said to be fearless and powerful. But later, because this method was too vicious, the corpse refining sect was destroyed by several spirit cultivator sects together. I just didn't expect Buwanhu, who had outstanding military achievements, to use such vicious methods to refine corpse puppets." After hearing Luo Xiaowen's words, many people gasped in shock. It seemed that these corpse puppets were refined into puppets when they were still alive. That kind of inhuman pain was terrifying just thinking about it. Everyone could not help but snort at Boiwanhu in their hearts. However, Lung Shiqi felt that something was wrong. Because he cultivated the 7 evil blood art, although he could not exert the characteristics of this technique, he was more sensitive to evil spirits. Logically speaking, this kind of corpse puppet should have strong resentment and evil spirits, but Lung Shiqi did not feel the slightest bit of evil spirits from them. He even vaguely felt an indescribable feeling. Lung Shiqi continued to look back and found that there was a door at the back of the corpse puppets that led to another place. That place was also a place that Byakugan could not penetrate. He guessed that might be the place where Boiwanhu was buried. However, if he wanted to go there, he had to go through these corpse puppets first. There were more than 1,000 corpse puppets, and each of them had excellent weapons and armor. Although he had not fought with them yet, he could tell that they were not easy to deal with. Whether it was the city guards, Qingkou Hall, Tianyan Tower, or Luo Yu Manor, they did not have many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm under them. Most of them were in the pure spirit realm. However, both sides added up to about 300 to 400 people. With such a lineup, even if they could win against the corpse puppets, they would suffer heavy losses. Therefore, neither side wanted to be the vanguard. At this time, there was a burst of noise from the passage behind them. Not long after, a large group of rogue cultivators rushed over. There were about 200 to 300 people. When these rogue cultivators saw the corpse puppets, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. However, there were all kinds of people among the rogue cultivators, and there were a few who were bold enough to poke the corpse puppets. This touch did not matter, but all the corpse puppets trembled slightly at this moment. Thousands of corpse puppets stiffly turned a few times and then rushed over together. The first few people who touched the corpse puppets were pierced by the corpse puppets' spears in the blink of an eye, and they could not be more dead. The sudden awakening of the corpse puppets caught everyone off guard. Among them, 3 corpse puppets attacked Lung Shiqi at the same time. However, Lung Shiqi did not panic. He did not dodge, but unsheathed his spirit saber and took the initiative to meet them. He wanted to see how strong these corpse puppets were. With a clang, Lung Shiqi's scimitar blocked the spears of the 3 corpse puppets. Immediately after, 3 huge forces were transmitted, shaking his hand until it went numb. Each corpse puppet actually has the strength of a peak pure spirit realm cultivator. Lung Shichi secretly exclaimed. Then, something even stranger happened. The three corpse puppets actually split up. One of them stalled Lung Shichi from the front, and the other two surrounded him from the side. They actually had a certain level of consciousness. A hint of surprise appeared in Lung Shichi's eyes, but he could not delay any longer because several corpse puppets were rushing towards him from behind. Then, Lung Shichi used spirit steps and easily dodged the attacks of the three corpse puppets. Then, with a shake of the scimitar in his hand, hundreds of saber shadows directly enveloped the three corpse puppets. The saber light was like a storm, and in a few breaths, the three corpse puppets were cut into pieces. Chapter 163. Lung Shichi pulled himself out and looked around. The people from the various forces had gathered and were fighting for themselves. There were not many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm in the city guards and Chinko Hall, but they had the advantage of numbers. At this moment, they formed a circle and hugged each other. The people outside were injured or did not have enough spirit energy, so the people inside immediately went up and stabilized their position. Although the people in Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor were few, they were all elite disciples in the spirit transformation realm. There were even Spirit Pulse realm experts. At this moment, Heavenly Cloud Tower's Deacon Elder Yu Jinyu suddenly slapped out. A majestic palm force surged out and instantly destroyed more than a dozen corpse puppets. Luo Xiuan of Luo Yu Manor actually used a brush as his weapon. He swung the brush freely among the corpse puppets. Every time he wrote, he would kill a corpse puppet. These corpse puppets were no threat to the two of them at all. Only the rogue cultivators were killed by the corpse puppets. They were not strong enough and could not trust each other to work together. Almost half of them were killed by the corpse puppets. The rogue cultivators standing near the passage were scared out of their wits and hurriedly ran back to the passage to leave. However, before they could run a few steps, they ran into 5 people dressed in black. These 5 people had pale skin and were expressionless. A rogue cultivator who ran out accidentally bumped into one of the black-clothed men because he didn't look back. The black-clothed man glanced at him and immediately opened his hand, crushing the rogue cultivator's throat with lightning speed. The remaining dozen or so people stopped abruptly and looked at each other in dismay. However, they immediately ignored the dead man and wanted to continue moving forward. Unexpectedly, the faces of the other 4 black-clothed men revealed a wisp of desire, and then they suddenly attacked those rogue cultivators. This attack shocked the rogue cultivators. Only then did they realize that the 5 black-robed men were all in the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. How could these rogue cultivators be their opponents? In the blink of an eye, they were killed in an extremely tragic manner. The 5 black-clothed men walked into the huge tomb with blood on their lapels. Lung Shichi, who was closest to the passageway, noticed them immediately. Then, he sensed a strong murderous aura and the smell of blood from the 5 men. These people must be the devil cultivators from Shangyang City. They're as cruel as the rumors say. No wonder they're so popular. Now, only the people from the Howie sect had yet to appear. What were they waiting for? Aren't you afraid that the Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor will snatch everything away? Lung Shichi was dealing with the zombies around him with ease, so he had the time to observe and think about other things. He didn't kill the corpse puppet as quickly as he did in the beginning. Instead, he led the corpse puppet to move left and right to buy time. In other words, he was slacking. The 5 fiendish cultivators seemed to feel that they had not killed enough. After entering, they took the initiative to kill the corpse puppets. Furthermore, their attacks were straightforward and ruthless, and they cooperated very well with each other. In terms of killing the corpse puppets, they were not slower than Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan. As the number of corpse puppets decreased, the pressure on everyone lessened. Gradually, the spirit cultivators took control of the battle. At this time, Lung Shichi was no longer slacking. After killing 20 to 30 corpse puppets in a row, All the corpse puppets had been wiped out. At this time, there were only about 100 people left on the Chinko Hall's side. The city guard were slightly better. The Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luoyu Manor, and the 5 fiendish cultivators did not suffer much damage. They only consumed more spiritual power. The most miserable were the rogue cultivators. Not long ago, there were hundreds of rogue cultivators, but now there were only a few dozen left. This was the sorrow of rogue cultivators. They did not have good cultivation talent and did not have good cultivation methods or spiritual skills. However, they also wanted to go further, so they stepped into this tomb to fight for an opportunity. Unfortunately, more than half of them had died before they even saw the tomb. Lung Shiqi could not help but feel a trace of sorrow for them. Rogue cultivators could be said to be the lowest existence among spirit cultivators. Today was the golden age of spirit cultivators. However, any slightly better cultivation methods, spiritual skills, and even cultivation resources were firmly in the hands of various spirit cultivator sects and empires. However, regardless of whether it was spirit cultivator sects or empires, they would only recruit people with decent cultivation talent. If they really could not do it, they would still have connections. However, the vast majority of people in this world had neither talent nor connections. They could only be reduced to rogue cultivators. All day long, they fought for a little bit of resources until they bled and even lost their lives. Of course, this thought only flashed through Lung Shiqi's mind. He immediately approached the crowd of Chinko Hall and looked at the door behind the corpse puppets. Everyone gathered in front of the door. The door was 20 feet tall and smooth. The strange thing was that there was not even a door knocker. How do I open this door? At this time, Yu Jinyu walked forward and stretched out a finger. Immediately, a white finger force shot out from his body and shot towards the door. Chapter 164. After the door was opened, before anyone could see what was inside, boundless Yin-Chi gushed out at a speed visible to the naked eye. If Lung Shiqi felt a little chilly when he entered the mausoleum, then the Yin-Chi was rushing toward him now. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Some of them were unable to withstand the cold and began to shiver on the spot. There are even some whose bodies were invaded by the baleful aura, triggering the negative emotions in their hearts and causing them to go crazy on the spot. Of course, they were quickly killed by the others. Lung Shiqi also felt a desire to kill in his mind. Fortunately, his mental strength was not weak. He mobilized his mental strength in time to suppress the impulse. What surprised him was that the 5 cruel demonic cultivators did not show any abnormalities. When the Yin-Chi gradually dissipated, Lung Shiqi followed the crowd into the tomb. The area here was not small, just a little smaller than the tomb outside. There were circles of pitch-black iron pillars around the tomb, and each of the iron pillars was connected by chains. A heavy coffin was suspended in the middle of the layers of chains. The coffin was pale gold in color. It was engraved with strange patterns. This should be the main tomb of Boiwanhu. Lung Shiqi opened his Byakugan again, but he still could not see the inside of the coffin. Seeing this coffin, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan's eyes could not help but burn. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin's eyes lit up. The others were even more unbearable. The word greed was written all over their faces, and some even drooled. Lung Shiqi, on the other hand, had been observing the iron pillars and chains. This scene gave him a sense of déjà vu. He thought for a moment and finally remembered that when the fusion blood beast appeared on the 5th floor of the blood-colored tower, the formation that trapped it was similar to the one here. It was just that the formation in this tomb was much larger than that time. He secretly guessed, could it be that this place is suppressing or sealing something? The Yin-Chi just now was also very strange. Could it be suppressing Boiwanhu? While Lung Shiqi was thinking, the others couldn't help but talk about it. This must be Marquis Buiyuan's coffin. Without a doubt. Such a big coffin. How much gold and silver are there in it? Gold, silver, and treasures are nothing. There must be natural treasures inside. Maybe there are even cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. So what if there is? It has nothing to do with us. In the end, it still belongs to those few people. The people he was referring to were naturally Yu Jinyu, Luo, Xiaowen, Go Huarong, and Zhonglin. At this moment, the four of them were discussing something in low voices for the first time. Yu Jinyu said straightforwardly, "Who will open the coffin?" Luo, Xiaowen, and Go Huarong fell silent. This tomb was full of traps. There must be some traps on the last coffin. Whoever opened the coffin would be in danger. The corner of Yu Jinyu's mouth twitched as she continued. "Why don't we let those people come?" As he spoke, he pointed at the remaining dozens of rogue cultivators. The other three immediately understood what she meant and nodded. Then, the people from the four forces surrounded the rogue cultivators. Those people felt something was wrong, but it was too late to run now. "What are you doing?" Yu Jinyu's gaze fell on the person who spoke. It was a middle-aged man who looked a little sloppy. He felt a chill down his spine when he was stared at by Yu Jinyu. Yu Jinyu pointed at him and said, "You, go open the coffin." The sloppy middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He immediately shook his head like a rattle drum. "What? No, I won't go." Yu Jinyu's gaze turned cold as she sneered. "Humph, this is not up to you. If you want to live, go open the coffin. Don't make me say it a third time." The sloppy middle-aged man saw the murderous intent in Yu Jinyu's eyes. If he didn't agree, he would be lying here forever. It was dangerous to open the coffin. If he didn't open the coffin, he would die. This was an easy choice to make. He could only compromise. He mustered up his courage and walked through the chains to get close to the coffin. Everyone's gaze fell on him. Long Shichi also stared at this person to see if there was any danger in the process of walking into the coffin. However, to everyone's surprise, the sloppy middle-aged man actually reached the bottom of the coffin. Long Shichi thought to himself, "Aren't these chains some kind of array formation? Maybe I'm thinking too much." The sloppy middle-aged man jumped on top of the coffin. Although the coffin was suspended in the air, it didn't move at all. The sloppy middle-aged man moved to the side and stood on the iron pillar at the corner of the coffin. He rubbed his hands and grabbed the coffin lid with both hands. The sloppy middle-aged man tried to lift the coffin lid with all his strength, but the lid didn't move at all. Then, his spirit force surged and there was a faint light on his arms. His face turned red, but he still couldn't open the coffin. Yu Jinyu pointed at three people in a row and said, You, and you, go over too." The three people he pointed at were all rogue cultivators at the spirit transformation realm, so the three of them could only go over with a calm face. They and the sloppy middle-aged man stood at the four corners. Then, they used all of their spirit force to grab the coffin lid. With a GA sound, the coffin lid moved. The four of them were overjoyed. They immediately increased their strength and suddenly lifted the coffin lid. Lung Shichi's expectation of a scene filled with baleful aura did not happen. He immediately activated his supercilious eyes and looked over. Soon after, his greenish-white eyes were filled with astonishment as he quietly retreated. The four people who opened the coffin subconsciously looked down and saw that the coffin was filled with a dense light black fog. There didn't seem to be any treasures in the fog. They only saw a burly figure wearing heavy armor, holding a heavy sword, and a helmet. The helmet only revealed two holes. However, in the next moment, the two holes lit up, whoosh, before the others had time to rush to the coffin, for black fog suddenly rushed out of the coffin. It turned into a huge ghost claw and instantly grabbed the four people who opened the coffin and dragged them into the coffin. Immediately, there was a burst of shrill screams. The coffin trembled slightly, and then there was no more sound. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen looked at each other. This situation was indeed beyond their expectations. The aura from the four fog was stronger than theirs. At this moment, an old man in white rushed in from the door behind them. He shouted in a panic, "Don't open the coffin! Don't open the coffin!" As soon as he finished speaking, the black fog in the coffin instantly rushed to the sky. At that time, he thought that people would change, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. But when he got more detailed information from Mao Kai, he felt that Buyuan-ho's effort to build a tomb for himself only resulted in the extermination of his entire family. The gains didn't make up for the losses. Not long ago, when he saw the thousands of corpse puppets outside, Lung Shiqi's impression of Buyuan-ho was extremely bad. Perhaps the one recorded in history and information wasn't the real Buyuan-ho. The real Marquis Buyuan had created so many undead puppets to protect his mausoleum. So he must have been a vicious and merciless person. But now, after hearing Lu Lucheng's words, he changed his opinion of Buyuan-ho once again. It turned out that everything Buyuan-ho had done was to suppress an extremely dangerous ghost. Even if his entire family was exterminated, even if he had to bear a lifetime of infamy, even if his name would go down in history, Lung Shiqi didn't expect that there would be such a righteous person like Buyuan-ho in this world. Not only him, but everyone else was the same. Many people showed ashamed expressions at this time. If that was really the case, then they were actually coveting Buyuan-ho's burial items, which made them feel a little ashamed. But more people still had an indifferent attitude. Their eyes were still staring at Buyuan-ho's coffin, hoping to see what was inside. At this time, Lung Shiqi suddenly thought of a question, which happened to be asked by Luo Xiaowen. What exactly is Buyuan-ho trying to suppress? Chapter 166. Before Lu Leking could answer, 5 shadows suddenly appeared under Buyuan-ho's coffin. They each held an unknown spherical object in their hands, then raised it up and pressed it against the bottom of Buyuan-ho's coffin. Then 5 pitch-black streams of ink gushed out of the spherical objects and wrapped around Buyuan-ho's coffin like 5 tentacles. At the same time, Buyuan-ho's coffin lit up with a pale golden light, but it was suppressed by the ink streams as soon as it appeared. Buyuan-ho's corpse began to tremble all over, and the black mist around him quickly faded. He let out an unwilling roar and swung his heavy sword down. However, the 5 streams of ink were so tough that they were not cut in half. This series of changes was unexpected to everyone, especially Lu Lucheng. His expression changed abruptly as he shouted, "Quick, stop them, otherwise we'll all die." "Ha ha, it's too late." The 5 demonic cultivators laughed. At this time, the black mist around Buyuan-ho's body was very little, and his aura was rapidly weakening. At the same time, the whole tomb began to tremble slightly. The trembling was getting more and more intense. Clanking noises could be heard from the chains in the tomb. Soon after, specks of light blossomed from the iron pillars that were connected to the chains. The light extended along the chains, and in the blink of an eye, all the chains were covered in a layer of light. An extremely complicated array appeared on the floor of the tomb. At the center of the array was Buyuan-ho's coffin. At this time, the ground there was constantly moving up and down, as if something was about to rush out. Lung Shiqi opened his supercilious eye. Although he still could not see what was under the array, he could see that the spiritual power of the array was slowly weakening. In other words, the array would not last long, and the thing that had been suppressed by Buyuan-ho for more than 300 years would soon break free. Lung Shiqi already had plans to retreat. Unfortunately, just as he was about to leave, Buyuan-ho's corpse suddenly stabbed his heavy sword into the coffin, transferring all the black mist on his body into it. The iron pillars suddenly spread out, and the layers of chains danced in the air, surrounding the entire tomb. Even the door behind them was shut with a loud bang. Lung Shiqi was standing next to the door. He was 1 step away from leaving this place, but he was still 1 step too late. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately executed the hand of the earth with the intention of burrowing through the ground. However, to his surprise, he was actually unable to soften the ground here. Lung Shiqi's heart couldn't help but sink. But on second thought, with such a complicated array formation, it was reasonable for the hand of the earth to fail. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The hand of the earth could be said to be the most comprehensive spiritual technique he had developed. It could be used to attack, retreat, and escape. Especially the earth burrowing technique, which he loved to use the most. Who would have thought that he would suffer a setback today? Escape? There was no escape now. Lung Shiqi could only let go of this thought. Next, he had to think about how to survive. If we kill them now, we still have a chance to stop it from breaking out of the array. Lu Leking hurriedly shouted, and then he rushed over without a care for his own safety. He was also a spiritual pulse realm expert. Although he was not young, his body was very agile. He jumped over countless chains and quickly approached the 5 demonic cultivators. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan knew that things were serious and followed closely behind. Lung Shiqi looked at the 5 demonic cultivators with a cold expression in his eyes. He held 2 scimitars behind his back and rushed over like a jaguar. At this time, almost all the spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm attacked the 5 demonic cultivators. Seeing this, the demonic cultivators laughed even more arrogantly. The aura on their bodies suddenly increased by several times. It turned out that they were all in the spiritual pulse realm. It was just that they had used some method to hide their cultivation. At this time, 90% of the people suddenly stopped. That was a total of 5 spiritual pulse experts. Wouldn't they be courting death if they rushed up again? Thus, only 6 figures continued to rush toward them. They were Lu Leking and the other 2 spiritual pulse realm experts, Zhong Lin, Go Huarong, and Lung Shiqi. Lu Liqing's eyes flashed, and he shouted, "Don't be afraid. They are suppressing Bwana's corpse with all their strength. They can't move at all." Hearing this, some of the people who stopped gritted their teeth and continued to rush over, while some remained where they were. In the blink of an eye, Lu Lekeng and the other 2 were the first to get close. Lu Leking held a disc in his hand. At this time, purple spirit inscriptions burst out from the disc and formed a small array in front of him. He pressed the disc on the ground, and the purple spirit inscriptions immediately spread out and surrounded the 5 demonic cultivators. Then, Lu Lekeng sat cross-legged and said, "I will maintain the little thunder cloud array to limit their strength. I'll leave the rest to you." As soon as he finished speaking, a purple lightning bolt as thick as a finger shot out from the little thunder cloud array. Because the 5 demonic cultivators had to hold the ball-shaped object with one hand to suppress Bwana's corpse, they could not move. This lightning bolt directly hit one of them, causing him to tremble. Then, the second lightning bolt began to brew. Chapter 167. In terms of pure offensive power, Lung Shiqi's 2 blade rays were only slightly weaker than Yu Jinyu's. It had to be known that Yu Jinyu was at the spirit pulse realm, but Lung Shiqi was only at the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. Looking at his attire, he didn't look like someone from a spirit cultivation sect. They didn't expect a small rogue cultivator to have such strength. Go Huarong couldn't help but widen his eyes. He was the one who brought Lung Shiqi here. He had always thought that Lung Shiqi was just an ordinary rogue cultivator who obtained the map by luck and never took him seriously. He even wanted to kill Lung Shiqi. Now that he saw how strong Lung Shiqi was, Go Huarong was glad that he didn't make a move against Lung Shiqi. Otherwise, he might have been the one to die. Seeing this, Zhong Lin secretly said, "So it's him." That day, when Lung Shiqi tried to assassinate Bao Pengyi, he and Chu Xinran had secretly seen a few shocking saber lights from afar, which were exactly the same as what was happening now. Therefore, Zhong Lin knew that Lung Shiqi was Bao Pengyi's killer. Although Lu Licheng was a little surprised, he was still maintaining the formation and couldn't pay too much attention to it. Immediately after, 2 more purple lightning bolts shot out from the formation. Moreover, it hit the person who was injured just now. The devil cultivator immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, but his face revealed a crazy smile. "Ha, it's out, it's out, it's out. Just wait for your death." "Not good," Lu Licheng suddenly shouted. Just as he finished speaking, all the formations on the ground shattered. The iron pillars and chains flew out in all directions, killing countless people. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Lung Shiqi relied on the spirit steps to nimbly retreat, dodging one iron pillar and chain after another. During this process, he saw a huge palm break out of ground. The 5 devil cultivators all retreated, no longer paying attention to Bo Yuanho's corpse, because at this time, the corpse's aura was abnormally low. The giant hand continued to stretch out, revealing a thick, pitch-black arm. When the arm came into contact with Boiwana's coffin, it suddenly moved and sent Boiwana's corpse and the coffin flying with a slap. At this time, some people also noticed that the coffin was empty. There was nothing inside. The gold and silver treasures, heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, and high-grade spiritual artifacts that they had imagined were all nowhere to be found. It turned out that this was an empty tomb. However, at this moment, no one was thinking about this. They were only thinking about how to survive. After the huge arm overturned the coffin, the ground began to crack, as if a huge monster was about to break out of the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, countless tiles on the ground exploded as if they were swept away by a hurricane. Then, a pillar of monstrous devil chi gushed out from the ground, and a huge body that was more than 20 feet tall was faintly discernible in the devil chi. The 5 devil cultivators all revealed crazed and fanatical expressions. Black Fiend Demon Corpse. The Black Fiend demonic corpse has finally appeared. Haha, it's ours. However, before they could finish speaking, the thing that they called the Black Fiend Demon Corpse directly slapped them. The demonic corpse's attack revealed a terrifying aura that far exceeded the spirit pulse realm. But strangely, the 5 devil cultivators did not reveal the slightest bit of panic. It was as if all of this was within their expectations. The devil chi around each of them flashed, and the 5 of them strangely dodged the Black Fiend Demon Corpse's attack. Moreover, they spread out in 5 directions to surround it. Then, each of them took out a small, light golden needle. With a flick of their fingers, the golden needle ignored the devil chi around the Black Fiend Demon Corpse and shot into its body. The needle was very small, not even as thick as the Black Fiend Demon Corpse's hair. But it was this small golden needle that caused the terrifying Black Fiend Demon Corpse to howl in pain. Then, with the golden needle as the center, countless golden runes quickly spread out. These runes covered more than half of its body like a seal. One of the devil cultivators shouted, "Even if it's your 1,000-year-old Black Fiend Demon Corpse, you still want to cause trouble in front of us. Obediently kneel down and accept your submission." This series of huge changes made everyone a little dumbfounded. Blood flowed from the corner of Lu Cheng's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock as he muttered, "Golden thread fiend needle. How could they have such a treasure? Who are they?" One of the devil cultivators said, "You don't deserve to know our identity. You only need to know that you don't disturb us. Wei Yuan host sacrificed a lot to suppress this Black Fiend Demon Corpse. Our goal this time is to subdue this demonic corpse and prevent it from causing trouble in the world. This can also be considered a good karma. I think Wei Yuan host's spirit can rest in peace now. We can forget about the matter of you attacking us just now." Lung Shiqi could not help but frown. Only now did he finally understand that Buyuanho sacrificed himself to suppress this 1,000-year-old Black Fiend Demon Corpse. And from the beginning to the end, there were no treasures in this tomb at all. The most precious thing was naturally the Black Fiend Demon Corpse. The 5 devil cultivators came for it, but to Lung Shiqi and the others, it was not a treasure, but a ghost that could take their lives. Lung Shiqi also felt a little sullen. In the end, it was like drawing water with a bamboo basket. He did not get anything and wasted so much time. The others were even more unwilling. It was these devil cultivators who played them like monkeys. Now, they did not get any benefits and had to watch helplessly as the devil cultivators sealed the demonic corpse. Did they treat them like air? However, at this time, the Black Fiend Demon Corpse suddenly changed. Under the suppression of the golden thread fiend needle, the Black Fiend Demon Corpse could not move. The 5 devil cultivators took out many miscellaneous things and arranged a formation, as if to subdue the demonic corpse. At this moment, a pure black chi suddenly gushed out from the top of the demonic corpse's head. The black chi transformed into the same appearance as the demonic corpse, but it was much smaller, only as tall as a child. After this black chi appeared, the 5 devil cultivators immediately showed a look of horror and shouted in unison, "Demonic spirit, This black fiend demon corpse actually gave birth to a demonic spirit. Ha ha ha. The demonic spirit laughed crazily, but its voice was abnormally sharp, piercing people's ears and causing incomparable pain. Lung Shiqi hurriedly circulated his spirit energy to resist and felt a little better. He did not know what a demonic spirit was, but he knew that things had changed again. Sure enough, after the demonic spirit finished laughing, it suddenly turned into a ghostly shadow and pounced into the crowd of city guards. Wherever it passed, everyone's eyes rolled back and they fell to the ground. When it flew over Zhonglin's head, it paused for a moment, then entered Zhonglin's body. Zhonglin let out a horrifying scream. His body began to twist strangely, his eyes turned pitch black, and his entire body was covered with dense demonic patterns. The aura on his body also rose wildly, and in the blink of an eye, it was comparable to the spiritual pulse realm. Zhonglin looked around and smiled evilly. He raised the large sword beside him and began to slaughter the city guards like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. Ha! This feeling is still more fascinating. Seeing this, the 5 devil cultivators could no longer remain calm. They were still maintaining the formation to subdue the demonic corpse, so they had no time to deal with the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit was slaughtering the city guards, but suddenly, with a poochie sound, his arm exploded by itself. A weak body, this is not bad. After Zhonglin said this, his body fell limply. The demonic spirit reappeared and charged directly at a person. That person was Lung Shiqi. Chapter 168. Lung Shiqi cursed his bad luck when he saw the demon spirit rushing toward him. He immediately gathered all his spiritual power, and a faint black aura rose from his feet. He used the ethereal spirit steps and floated away. However, the demon spirit was even faster. Lung Shiqi had just dodged and was about to dodge a second time, but the demon spirit was already in front of him. He did not catch the demon spirit's shadow at all and was stopped by it. Then, the demon spirit entered Lung Shiqi's body, just like before. Lung Shiqi only knew that his vision turned black and he lost consciousness. Ha! Lung Shiqi laughed softly. Your physical body is not bad. Then, dense black demonic patterns appeared all over Lung Shiqi's body. Unlike before, the demonic patterns were still squirming slightly this time. His aura was even stronger and was comparable to the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm. Boom! Immediately, Lung Shiqi was wrapped in a dense demonic aura and crashed into the crowd of Luo Yu Manor disciples like a cannonball. Luo Xiaowen's expression changed greatly. Unfortunately, he cultivated very delicate spiritual techniques and was not good at such a fierce battle. He could only use all his strength to pull the 2 closest disciples away. However, the remaining disciples of the spiritual transformation realm could not stop Lung Shiqi. He spread his arms, and the demonic aura around him formed sabers, halberds, spears, and other weapons and smashed them down. The disciples of Luo Yu Manor had never seen such a battle before and were already panicking. They could not withstand a single blow from Lung Shiqi. Blood gushed out from the crowd, and limbs flew everywhere. Lung Shiqi wiped the blood stains on his hand and put it in his mouth. Delicious. It's your turn next. Lung Shiqi smiled coldly and locked his gaze on the 5 demonic cultivators who were still subduing the black fiend demon corpses. The 5 people's expressions immediately darkened. They were at the critical moment of sealing the demonic corpse, and if they were interrupted, it would mean that all their efforts would be for naught. Once their seal failed and the devil spirit returned to the black fiend demonic corpse, everyone in the tomb would die. Of course, that included them as well. Stop him! Stop him! One of the demonic cultivators shouted, but the others just dispersed and ignored him. In the beginning, it was these few people who were playing tricks. Otherwise, why would this black fiend demonic corpse be released? Now that there was a problem and they couldn't handle it, they thought of other people. Another devil cultivator frowned and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, I am Sulu. The array left behind by Marquis Buen is already an arrow at the end of its flight after more than 300 years. Otherwise, how could the five of us release the Black Fiend Devil Corpse so easily? Even without us, the Black Fiend demonic corpses will break out of the formation in a few years. And the purpose of our trip this time is to completely seal the Black Fiend Devil Corpse, so as to prevent it from causing an irreversible disaster. Now, we only need you to delay this monster for a moment. Once we seal its body, it will be time to kill the devil spirit. After Su Lu finished speaking, he looked at Luo Xiaowen, Yu Jinyu, and Lu Leking. Now, only the three of them could stop Lung Shiqi. These three people were the upper echelons of the spirit cultivator sect. Naturally, they knew that if the lips were gone, the teeth would feel cold. Although they were very unhappy about being used by the devil cultivators, they did not want to die even more. At this time, the three of them finally stood up. Lung Shiqi tilted his head. With a shake of his shoulders, the billowing demonic aura behind him condensed into 4 giant pythons. His hands also formed swords and sabers, and he charged forward at a speed as fast as a phantom. His demon-like attack immediately scared the surrounding people away, but at this time, 3 people blocked in front of him. Yu Jinyu raised one of his palms high above his head, and white clouds began to gather on it. Then, the clouds formed the shape of a huge palm. He shouted, "Sky Cloud Palm." The cloud palm slammed down from midair. At the same time, Luo Xiaowen's face darkened as he held his brush and drew out streaks of sword aura. The sword aura formed the word kill. When he drew the last stroke, the sword aura of the word kill shot out. Lu Leking was a little embarrassed. He was an array master and was not good at fighting head-on. At this time, he could only set up 2 defensive restrictions on the spot to stop Lung Shiqi. That's the ultimate skill of the Sky Cloud Pavilion, Sky Cloud Palm. It's said that the owner of the Sky Cloud Pavilion once used this move to kill a level 4 demonic beast. There's also the kill sword technique of Luo Yumanor. Anyone hit by it will definitely die. That Master Lu can set up restrictions out of thin air. Unbelievable. Is this the true strength of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert? I actually saw it with my own eyes. If I can get out of here alive today, this is enough for me to brag about for a year. When the others saw that the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm experts had taken out their trump cards, they started chatting and seemed to have forgotten that they were also in great danger. However, Lung Shiqi's eyes were full of disdain. Facing Yu Jinyu's Sky Cloud Palm, the 4 Devil Chi pythons behind him charged forward. Immediately, there was a loud bang in midair, and a black and white ball of light appeared. Huge waves of spirit chi spread wildly, and everyone could not help but take a few steps back. At this time, Luo Xiaowen's kill, Sword Chi, also arrived in front of Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi casually swung the saber and sword in his hand. He didn't use any powerful sword techniques, but just swung it down, and the kill word sword energy was instantly shattered. Lung Shiqi did not slow down and rushed to the restrictions set up by Lu Leking. However, Lu Leking himself had already run as far away as he could. He saw Lung Shiqi easily break Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen's attacks, and knew that these 2 restrictions could not stop him at all. Sure enough, the devil chi around Lung Shiqi surged. He directly ignored the 2 restrictions and rushed forward. The devil chi pythons behind him and the sword in his hands were all aimed at the 5 demon cultivators. Su Lu and the others were already a little regretful at this moment. They thought that this trip would be very smooth, but they did not expect this Black Fiend demon corpse to give birth to a demon spirit. Now that the demon spirit had found a suitable body and exploded with such terrifying combat power, even if the 5 of them worked together, they might not be a match for the demon spirit. Not to mention that they now had to maintain the array that sealed the demon corpse. Just as they did not know what to do, Lung Shiqi suddenly stopped. The demonic patterns on his body were slowly fading, and the demonic aura around him was disappearing by more than half. The 4 giant pythons and the sword had also disappeared into nothingness. Moreover, his upper body began to twist stiffly. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. The 5 demon cultivators' faces lit up. Although they did not know the reason, this did give them more time. They immediately put more effort into the seal. Then, half of Lung Shichi's face faded. He said with half of his mouth strangely, "Scram, out." Chapter 169. After being possessed by the demon spirit, Lung Shichi's consciousness came to an extremely dark space, and he turned into a small ball of green light. He had been here before. This was his spiritual space. However, at this time, his spiritual space was shrouded in a layer of devil chi, which was constantly eroding his spiritual space. Lung Shichi naturally could not sit still and wait for death. However, he was only a small ball of light now. What could he do? At this time, Lung Shichi knew that he could not panic. He quickly calmed down and looked for a solution. Slowly, he remembered that when the demon spirit came out of the black fiend demonic corpse, it was also a ball of black light, but it later turned into a human form. Can I do this too? Lung Shichi thought of this and tried it. Then his green ball of light began to squirm irregularly and gradually stretched out. It seems to work. Gradually, Lung Shichi seemed to have found the trick to controlling his body. Soon, it formed a green humanoid the size of a doll. However, this humanoid figure looked a little strange. Its 4 limbs were of different lengths, and the facial features on its face were blurry. Is this all I can do? Let's try it. Immediately, the green humanoid clenched its fists and slammed them into the layer of black demonic aura. Although the 2 fists were small, the force of the fists was extremely fierce. It was like a tiger pouncing on its prey and smashing into the demonic aura. The combined force of the fists directly blasted a big hole in the layer of demonic aura. Because of this, he once again felt his own body and gained some control over it. This was the scene that everyone saw outside. At this time, the right half of Lung Shichi's face was still covered with demonic patterns. This half of his face showed a hint of surprise. Then it became gloomy and said, and then the demonic aura in Lung Shichi's right eye soared. The demonic patterns on his body emerged again, and the demonic aura around him began to gather. At this time, Lu Leking saw this and immediately shouted, "They are fighting for control of the body. Quickly attack." Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan heard this and were about to attack. However, Lung Shichi said again, "Ignorant, come and kill him. After you kill him, I'll just change into another body." However, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan still rushed over. They were not stupid. Just now, when the demon spirit possessed Zhong Lin, his body exploded in an instant. Now, when it possessed Lung Shichi, it could last for so long. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Lung Shichi's body was extraordinary. Killing Lung Shichi would greatly weaken Mo Ling's strength. As for Lung Shichi's life and death, they didn't care at all. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan attacked from the left and right, 1 palm and 1 sword respectively. Lung Shichi also felt an extreme sense of crisis. He immediately used the little bit of control he had over his body to activate the Beast Essence battle pattern on his back. Boom! Lung Shichi's body suddenly swelled, bursting out of his robe, revealing his muscular upper body. At this moment, the picture of the spiritual ruined Beast King lit up on his back. There were even traces of golden light flowing within the picture. Once the Beast Essence battle pattern appeared, it immediately forced the demonic patterns on his back to retreat. Lung Shichi gained more control over his body. Seeing that it was effective, he immediately activated another Beast Essence battle pattern in front of him. Layers of silver-white light lit up at his chest, and the light quickly covered his entire body. When the silver light dissipated, Lung Shichi's body had an extra set of scales. Until now, only the right half of Lung Shichi's face still had demonic patterns, which made him feel slightly more at ease. The other half of the face smiled strangely and said, "Interesting." Lung Shichi immediately felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, the demonic patterns reappeared on his silver-white scales, but they were much sparser than before. At the same time, Yu Jinyu and Luo Shoan's attacks were about to reach him. Brat, if you don't want to die, give me control. The demon spirit's voice suddenly appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind. Impossible. If you die, I'll just change my body. But you'll really die. At most, we'll split it in half. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't give you control. Other than me, no one here can withstand your spiritual body. Without the support of your body, you can't use your full strength. If this continues, you'll be killed by the 5 demonic cultivators sooner or later. Half it is. Lung Shiqi let out a cry that sounded like a human, a demon, and a beast. Demonic chi surged around him, and he was covered in a layer of thin silver armor. The thin silver armor was covered with strange demonic patterns. In addition, a demonic beast pattern lit up on his back. What was even stranger was that his face was clearly split into 2 halves. The right half of his face was gloomy and violent, and his eyes were filled with pure demonic chi. The left half of his face was calm and shrewd. Blue veins popped out at the corners of his eyes, but his pupils had turned greenish-white. He stood still, and his black hair was blown wildly by the invisible force. He was like a demon. In the face of Luo Shoan and Yu Jinyu's attacks, he stood still. Then, he swung his right arm, and the demonic aura behind him condensed into several huge halberds. The halberds carried a ferocious demonic aura and destroyed Luo Shoan's sword aura like a rubber ball. They tore through his protective spirit energy and sent him flying. Luo Shoan spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in midair and fell heavily to the ground. He slid back a few feet before stopping. Luo Shoan clutched his chest and said in shock, "He's actually much stronger than before." Almost at the same time, Lung Shiqi's left hand formed a palm and shot out 6 palm shadows. Every palm image was burning with raging devil flames. Wave after wave of blazing fire spread out, causing the surrounding spirit cultivator to retreat. After the 6 palm shadows were shot out, they merged into a demonic palm that was 5 feet in size. The demonic palm clashed with Yu Jinyu's sky cloud palm. When the 2 palms collided, there was a boom. The 2 palms collided and exploded in midair. However, the sky cloud palm was completely suppressed by the demonic palm and shattered after 2 breaths. The demonic palm did not slow down and continued to rush towards Yu Jinyu with the demonic flames. Yu Jinyu was shocked. Just as the demonic palm was about to reach him, a light purple lightning net suddenly appeared in front of him. The demonic palm was stopped by the lightning net, and Yu Jinyu immediately reacted and dodged. The moment he dodged, the demonic palm also broke through the lightning net and hit the tomb wall behind him. It actually left a deep palm print on the wall. Wherever the demonic palm passed, whether it was the floor or the iron pillars and chains, they all melted. This palm was actually so powerful. Yu Jinyu's face had already turned pale. If this palm landed on him, he would definitely die. Thus, he also looked at Lu Liqing gratefully. If it were not for Lu Liqing's lightning net that bought him some time, he would have melted like those chains. The demon spirit borrowed his body. Similarly, Lung Shiqi could also borrow the demon spirit's demonic aura. Just now, he used the 6-yang poisonous fire palm and added a majestic demonic aura. At the same time, he used the Byakugan to see through the spiritual power distribution of the sky, cloud palm, and found the flaw in Yu Jinyu's palm. That was why he could easily defeat Yu Jinyu. "Kid, your palm is a bit tricky. Help me get back my physical body. I can accept you as my disciple and teach you the supreme demonic technique." Chapter 170. Inside the tomb, Lung Shiqi's demonic aura was monstrous. 2 spiritual pulse experts couldn't even take a single blow from him, which made the others feel despair. At this time, Lung Shiqi's demonic eye on the right stared fiercely at Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators, while his left eye glanced at the door of the tomb. "Boy, you have some skills. Let's join hands and kill those 5 people. Help me get my body back, and I'll teach you the supreme demonic technique." Imo Ling's voice appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind. "No, I think it's best to leave now. Leave? How can I give up on my body that has been cultivating for thousands of years? You think I can't see that your body has been suppressed for hundreds of years and has long been ruined? Moreover, those 5 demonic cultivators are about to be sealed. It's too late. Lung Shiqi naturally saw the situation inside the black fiend demon's corpse through his white eye. The demonic corpse looked unparalleled on the surface, but the inside of its body had long deteriorated. Presumptuous. I'm only talking to you like this because I'm giving you face. Do you know who I am? Join hands with me to get my body back, or I'll immediately devour your soul. Is that so? But you have to know that only my current state can allow you to exert the greatest power of your spirit body. If I die, you won't be able to kill the demonic cultivators. By the time they subdue your main body, your death date will also be here. Moreover, will you let me go after I help you get your body back? Are you too naive, or am I too naive? You. Mo Ling found that Lung Shiqi was unexpectedly stubborn, but what he said was all true. Now, Mo Ling still had to rely on Lung Shiqi's double beast origin battle patterns to exert the greatest power of his body. Just as the two of them were arguing, a tall figure stood up. It was Bo Yuanho's corpse. At the beginning, Bo Yuanho's corpse was sealed by the 5 demonic cultivators. Later, the black fiend demon corpse broke out of the formation and directly sent it flying to a corner of the tomb. After that, everyone's attention was placed on the black fiend demon corpse and actually forgot about it. At this time, the fiend corpse stood up. His scarlet eyes stared at the black fiend demon corpse that was about to be sealed. Then, he waved the heavy sword in his hand and walked over with heavy steps. With every step he took, his speed increased by a bit. When everyone noticed him, he was already charging over like a fierce bull. When Su Lu saw this, he immediately panicked. They were only a hair away from completely sealing the black fiend demonic corpse. Who would have thought that another big problem would come at this time? That's impossible. Didn't the fiendish corpse turn into an ordinary corpse after its baleful aura was sucked dry? Just a little bit more, damn it. Who can stop him? However, at this time, Luo Xiuan was injured. Yu Jinyu and Lu Leking had consumed a lot of their spiritual power, and the remaining pure spirit realm and spirit transformation realm cultivators could not help. The only one who could stop the corpses was the Lung Shiqi. Unfortunately, they were still struggling with their thoughts. At this moment, Mo Ling also saw the fiend corpse rushing over and knew what it wanted to do. He immediately pulled the right half of the Lung Shiqi and rushed forward. Mo Ling wanted to destroy the fiendish cultivator's seal and also stop the fiend corpse's attack. But this was too difficult. If he went to stop the fiend corpse, then his original body would be sealed. If he went to kill the fiendish cultivators, then his original body would have to face the attacks of Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. Mo Ling knew the situation of his original body best. If he allowed the fiend corpse to attack, he was afraid that he would really be killed. Kid, let's work together again. I'll kill the fiendish cultivators. You go stop Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. However, the Lung Shiqi's method was to do his best to stop Mo Ling. In the spiritual space, the Lung Shiqi was also constantly destroying the fiendish qi in order to gain more control of his body. In the outside world, he controlled the left half of his body to hold Mo Ling back. Bastard, you're courting death. Mo Ling suddenly appeared in the spiritual space. He waved his arms, and the fiendish qi behind him formed 9 giant pythons and rushed over. At the same time, in the outside world, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was getting faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it was not far from the fiend corpse. Then, he raised his heavy sword, which emitted waves of fiendish qi that made people shudder. The heavy sword fell with the force of 1,000 caddies, instantly destroying the fiendish cultivator's formation and sending them flying back while vomiting blood. In the next moment, the heavy sword slashed across the fiendish black corpse's neck, and its head fell to the ground. Not only that, but the black light on the heavy sword continued to absorb the fiendish black corpse's fiendish black corpse. In the blink of an eye, The fiendish black corpse collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally turned into a large pile of minced meat. After doing all this, Bo Yunho's fiend corpse's tall body fell down with a loud bang, and the heavy sword fell beside him with clang. Even if Bo Yuanho only had a traceable left, he still wanted to kill the fiend corpse. At this moment, Su Lu and the other fiendish cultivator's eyes were so wide that they were about to pop out of their sockets. They had worked so hard and wasted so many treasures, but in the end, they had failed at the most critical moment. What made their efforts go to waste was not the fiend spirit, who was the greatest threat, but the fiend corpse of Bo Yuanho, who they had never taken seriously. They were full of anger, but now that Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was completely dead, they had nowhere to vent their endless anger. At the same time, in Lung Shiqi's spiritual space, the fiend spirit controlled the 9 ferocious pythons to rush toward Lung Shiqi's spiritual body. Lung Shiqi was startled by the fiend spirit might that soared to the sky. He hurriedly used Ghost Parade and Spirit Steps in an attempt to dodge. But the fiend spirit laughed wildly and said, "Still want to dodge? Die." However, just as the 8 pythons were about to completely devour Lung Shiqi's spiritual body, the demon's spirit trembled all over. He couldn't even maintain his human form. The pythons condensed from demonic aura naturally dissipated into nothingness. Lung Shiqi's heart moved. He knew that the fiend spirit's main body had been killed. After all, the fiend spirit was only born from the fiend corpse's remnant, while after many years of accumulation. He originally relied on the main body to exist, which was why he had to take back his physical body. Now that his main body was killed, his spiritual body was naturally seriously injured, and his strength sharply decreased. The reason why Lung Shiqi wanted to stop the fiend spirit was because of this. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lung Shiqi hurriedly controlled his body to take out something that should not exist in this world from the system space. A small glass bottle. The glass bottle contained a light blue liquid. This was the prize that Lung Shiqi won from the 20 consecutive draws on Blood Mist Island, the spirit mixture. Lung Shiqi raised his head and drank it. Then, in the spiritual space, his spiritual body shone with a green light. Not only did it grow several times, but it also formed the same appearance as himself. Even a strand of hair was very fine. He clenched his hands and condensed 2 long swords, staring at the fiend spirit with killing intent. Chapter 171. In the spiritual space, Lung Shiqi slashed out 2 cyan blade auras that were like crescent moons. The blade auras flew out with boundless sharpness. The demon spirit's entire body was still trembling. It was unable to resist at all and allowed the 2 cyan blade auras to slash its body. The 2 cyan blade auras instantly cut the demon spirit into 3 pieces. The demon spirit's body became even smaller and could no longer maintain its human form. All that was left was its head. In the outside world, the demonic patterns on Lung Shiqi's body were fading. At the same time, his aura suddenly dropped. It dropped again and again until it was equivalent to the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. This huge change in aura immediately attracted the attention of the spirit pulse realm cultivators, especially the 5 demonic cultivators. Su Lu's face was ferocious as he shouted, "The demon corpse has been slashed, and the demon spirit has also been heavily injured. Kill this person and hook out the demon spirit. I will torture it day and night so that it will never be reincarnated." Voila! The 5 demonic cultivators took out a strange weapon at the same time. The weapon seemed to connect the 2 curved blades together. Then, a faint black, demonic aura emitted from the weapon. The 5 of them charged towards Lung Shiqi with killing intent in their eyes. At this time, Lung Shiqi had regained control of most of his body. Seeing 5 spirit pulse realm experts around him, he was shocked. A part of his mind sank into the spiritual space and said, "Demon spirit, do you want to live? If you have something to say, say it." At this moment, the demon's soul spoke, but its voice was obviously weak. "Lend me all your strength and charge out. You just injured this sovereign, and you want this sovereign to help you?" "Wishful thinking," the demon's spirit roared. "But if I die, you will definitely fall into their hands. Didn't you hear them just now? They want to lock you up and torture you so that you will never be reincarnated. Helping me escape is also helping yourself. After we get out, we will settle our grudges with our own abilities. It's better than dying in the hands of others." "Okay." Mo Ling hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing. Then, he completely gave up control of Lung Shiqi's body. Not only did Lung Shiqi regain control of his body, but he also felt a huge amount of devil qi surging out of his body. However, at this moment, the 5 fiendish cultivators had already arrived. Lung Shiqi tapped his feet lightly, and 2 streams of black mist rose up to his thighs, increasing his speed by 80%. Then he used floating spirit steps and dodged the attacks of the 2 like a ghost. Lung Shiqi's footsteps paused as he threw out a punch and a palm respectively. That punch was followed by the sound of a tiger's roar. Immediately after, a shadow of a ferocious tiger leaped out and crashed into a devil cultivator, sending him flying. Furthermore, when that person wasn't paying attention, a powerful hidden energy surged into his body, causing him to spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. The other palm was the 6-yang poisonous fire palm. The devil cultivator had seen the power of this palm and did not dare to fight it head-on. Instead, he chose to retreat. Lung Shiqi dodged the attacks of the 2 and forced the other 2 to retreat, but there was still one devil cultivator who had not made a move yet. That was Su Lu. He had been watching Lung Shiqi's movements, looking for a flaw. At this moment, Su Lu's strange weapon burst out with an astonishing cold light and slashed horizontally. Lung Shiqi had thrown out a punch and a palm in succession. At this time, he was in a short period of weakness. This time, he could not avoid it. With a thought, a layer of pure devil qi was attached to his body. It was also at this moment that Su Lu's weapon arrived. With a buzzing sound, the weapon hit the devil qi and caused it to tremble. In less than a blink of an eye, it was broken. The weapon continued forward and cut a deep wound on Lung Shiqi's silver scale armor. With a strong force, Lung Shiqi could not help but fly backward and crash into the crowd of Heavenly Cloud Tower. The people of Heavenly Cloud Tower immediately scattered, while Yu Jinyu's eyes flashed with killing intent. Just now, he had been defeated by Mo Ling. Although he was not injured, he had lost face. Now, that Mo Ling's strength had been greatly reduced, he might as well hit him when he was down. After Lung Shiqi fell to the ground, he stood up directly regardless of his injuries. His eyes paused on someone in Heavenly Cloud Tower for a moment, and then he flashed out. Just as Yu Jinyu was about to make a move, a disciple next to him whispered, "Elder Yu, we have been fooled by the 5 devil cultivators for a long time. Why don't we let them and Mo Ling kill each other now? No matter who wins, the winner will definitely be seriously injured. At that time, we will come out to eliminate the devil cultivators. The name of Heavenly Cloud Tower will definitely spread throughout Donglin County." The person who spoke was Yoshia, who had been controlled by Lung Shiqi. Hearing Yoshia's words, Yu Jinyu nodded secretly and said, "It's a very good idea. You're very smart. I don't deserve it." Yu Jinyu stopped making a move and prepared to sit on a mountain and watch the tigers fight. Seeing this, Lung Shiqi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Dealing with the 5 devil cultivators was already his limit. If Yu Jinyu joined in, he was afraid that he would die here. Su Lu and others continued to attack. Yu Jinyu retreated far away with the people of Heavenly Cloud Tower. Lung Shiqi turned into a phantom and rushed out. On the ground where he had just fallen, there was a small, inconspicuous pill. Yoshi's eyes were filled with eagerness when he saw the pill. That was the last antidote of the ant-devouring poison pill. The battle between Lung Shiqi and the 5 devil cultivators was still going on. Although it was called a battle, it was more like Lung Shiqi had been dodging. If he couldn't dodge, he would fight head-on. It didn't take long for his body to be covered with wounds. In the process, many people were killed by mistake. What everyone didn't notice was that Lung Shichi's position was slowly approaching the door. However, he didn't deliberately get close. Instead, he circled around every time he got closer. He was afraid that others would find out his intention. At this time, Lung Shichi visually estimated the distance to the door and said secretly, "It's about time." Facing the 5 demonic cultivators, a spiritual sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Soon after, a graceful and agile feeling surged from his body. His figure flickered, and in an instant, more than 20 phantoms appeared. Many phantoms stabbed out with their swords in different postures, and each sword was accompanied by an amazing sword chi. In an instant, the sword chi overflowed, and the sword chi was everywhere. The faces of the 5 devil cultivators changed slightly. They couldn't tell if these phantoms were real or fake, so they could only defend. However, one of the phantoms didn't attack them. Instead, it turned around and rushed to the door. Su Lu was the first to notice Lung Shichi's intention. He immediately used his devil chi to force back the phantoms around him, and with a wave of his weapon, he shattered several sword chi and chased after him. Lung Shichi took out 3 flying daggers from his sleeves. The 3 flying daggers were stained with pure demonic aura and shot out in a triangular formation. After the flying daggers were shot out, the daggers absorbed the demonic aura on them, and even absorbed the surrounding light. The entire surrounding area seemed to have become dimmer. This was a level 3 spiritual skill, devouring light, throwing knives. Su Lu's figure suddenly stopped. The strange weapon in his hand spun, and with 3 clangs, the 3 throwing knives were knocked to the ground. However, Su Lu was also knocked back. His feet slid on the ground, leaving 2 deep grooves. After Lung Shichi shot out the throwing knives, he took out his 3-part spear. His aura was unparalleled. He drew a huge black cross of light and brazenly blasted it at the door. Chapter 172. Rumble. A loud noise suddenly came from the tomb. Under Lung Shichi's formation-breaking cross spear, half of the tomb's door had collapsed. Lung Shichi went out without hesitation. Su Lu and the other 4 demonic cultivators roared and immediately chased after him. However, just as they approached the door, a huge wave of ink-colored cold air rushed in from outside. Before the cold air touched them, Su Lu felt a bone-piercing cold, as if he had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cellar. Su Lu immediately shouted, "Retreat!" The other 4 people retreated one after another, barely avoiding the cold air that surged towards them. However, the cold air condensed and froze the collapsed part of the door. Seeing this, Su Lu's face was even darker than his clothes. He knew that even if they broke the ice wall, they would not be able to catch up with the demon spirit. Their trip this time could be said to be fruitless, and they even lost a bunch of treasures. It could be said that they went for wool and came home shorn. One of the demonic cultivators asked, "Senior brother, what should we do?" Su Lu's face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He said in a low voice, "Without the Black Fiend demon corpse, our whereabouts cannot be exposed." The other 4 understood Su Lu's meaning and then turned to look at the remaining people coldly. Luo Xiaowen was the closest to them, and he immediately sensed the killing intent from the 5 demonic cultivators. His heart skipped a beat. Now that he was seriously injured and lost more than half of his disciples, he was no match for the 5 demonic cultivators at the spiritual pulse realm. Lu Lucheng was alone and an array master, so he was not good at fighting head-on. The city guards were attacked by the demon spirit from the beginning and suffered heavy casualties. Go Huarong was still alive, but it was difficult for him to protect himself with his few spirit transformation realm cultivators and a group of pure spirit realm cultivators. As for the remaining rogue cultivators, they were like a plate of loose sand, almost as if they did not exist. The only ones who still maintained the strongest combat power were the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Therefore, Su Lu and the other 4 regarded them as the first targets to kill. On the other hand, Lung Shichi's frozen door had helped the demonic cultivators to temporarily trap everyone here. Yu Jinyu shouted with a pale face. What do you want to do? We are from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Su Lu didn't say a word as he approached with the odd-shaped blade in his hand. Apparently, he didn't take the Heavenly Cloud Tower seriously. Yu Jinyu shouted to everyone, Everyone, they actually want to silence us. Even though they are all in the Spirit Pulse realm, there are only 5 of them. If we join forces, we might still stand a chance. Luo Xiaowen and Lu Leking also stood up and expressed their attitude. When the other sects saw the 3 Spirit Pulse realm cultivators standing at the front, they naturally gathered around as well. The demonic cultivators only had 2 more Spirit Pulse realm cultivators. Just as Eugeniu had said, they had a chance of winning. However, the nameless demonic cultivator laughed sinisterly. Then a head, a pair of arms, a pair of legs, a skeleton, and a heart appeared in each of their hands. Demonic chi rose from the bodies of the demonic cultivators. After a dozen breaths of time, the scattered limbs actually connected together in the demonic chi, finally forming a demonic corpse. And that demonic corpse's aura was stronger than any of them. Su Lu laughed and said, Demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts, enjoy your meal. The demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts was their trump card, but it took time to summon the demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts. Previously, Lung Shichi was too fast for them to assemble. Now, it was time for them to slaughter. The 5 of them licked the corners of their mouths. On the other side, after Lung Shichi escaped from the tomb, he quickly passed through the mechanism corridor. However, when he was about to reach the entrance of the mausoleum, he directly jumped up and disappeared into the mountain wall above. Then, he went all the way up to the top of the mountain. Then, Lung Shichi suddenly stopped, and his mind sank into the spiritual space. In his spiritual space, Mo Ling became even more dispirited. Lung Shichi transformed into a long green blade and walked closer. Mo Ling said weakly, What? Now that you've escaped, you want to burn the bridge after crossing it? Lung Shichi's spiritual body began to slowly shrink at this time. He knew that the effect of the spiritual medicine was about to end, so he had to end the battle quickly. However, Mo Ling suddenly laughed sinisterly. And, do you really think I'm easy to bully? Look around you. Lung Shichi turned his head when he heard this. It turned out that a circle of various strange beasts formed by demonic patterns had appeared around him. The patterns were lifelike and looked like they would turn real at any time to tear him apart. Previously, in the outside world, Lung Shichi's thoughts were all on dealing with the 5 demonic cultivators and thinking of a way to escape. He actually allowed Mo Ling to set up such a trap. The demon spirit's remaining head grinned and said, Ha ha, a little ant dares to threaten this lord again and again. Now, as long as you take the initiative to offer your body, this lord can let you die a little faster, and you can even have a chance to reincarnate. Lung Shichi looked around carefully at the strange beasts, and then looked at Mo Ling. He felt that something was not right. Then his spiritual body closed and opened his eyes, and his eyes turned white. His spiritual body also activated Byakugan. Under the characteristics of Byakugan, Lung Shichi instantly saw through Mo Ling's trick and immediately sneered in his heart. So he was deliberately mystifying. This is just a smokescreen. That's right. If Mo Ling still has this kind of power, why did he have to join forces with me to escape? He could just kill the demonic cultivators directly. Mo Ling was still laughing wildly. However, Lung Shichi still held the dual blades and walked forward slowly. Mo Ling's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. But he still looked like he had victory in his hands, and a majestic demonic aura rose behind him. It was amazing. Brat, surrender before I go back on my words. Unfortunately, Lung Shichi was unmoved and continued to walk forward. At this moment, he had already walked in front of a strange beast. He gently waved his blade and cut the strange beast in half. Mo Ling didn't expect Lung Shichi to see through his trick. He stared at Lung Shichi's Byakugan for a moment. You actually have such a strange eye technique. Lung Shichi still ignored him. He raised his dual blades, and the blades began to shine again. Mo Ling suddenly said quickly, "Don't kill me. Don't kill me. We can still continue to work together. Don't you want to have the power to fight against 5 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators with your Spirit Transformation Realm cultivation? As long as you let me stay in your spiritual space, I can lend you my power at any time." Mo Ling's address for himself had changed from I to I. Lung Shiqi didn't answer him, and the blade shined even brighter. Mo Ling quickly continued, "Also, I have countless high-level cultivation methods, spiritual techniques, and extremely rare secret techniques. As long as you don't kill me, I can give them all to you. In addition, I left behind several treasures when I was alive, and the resources inside will all belong to you. With these, you will be able to break through to the Spirit Pulse Realm soon. In the future, you might even be able to transcend the 4 realms of heaven and become a powerful cultivator." Hearing this, Lung Shiqi finally restrained some of the blade shines, but he didn't put down the blades. He said, "Words are no guarantee." Mo Ling saw Lung Shiqi say this and knew that he had taken the bait. He immediately spat out a cloud of demonic aura, and the demonic aura outlined 3 paragraphs of text in front of him. They were the 9 Nether Demonic Pattern Diagram, Demonic Weapon Mystic Technique, and Earth Fiend Demonic Shadow Claw. Chapter 173. The demonic energy condensed into 3 paragraphs of text, and Mo Ling's voice came. This 9 Nether Mageweth diagram is a supreme cultivation technique that even I am cultivating. Its grade is beyond your imagination. However, your realm is too low, so I can only give you the first 3 levels. The Demonic Armament Secret Manual is a high-level spiritual technique. Once you master it, you can condense a demonic armament and wipe out an army. I can only teach you the first move, but I can teach you the complete Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw. This is a level 4 spiritual technique. Lung Shiqi secretly read these 3 paragraphs of text, and a system prompt appeared in front of his eyes, indicating that Mo Ling did not tamper with the techniques. However, Lung Shiqi had also roughly guessed Mo Ling's thoughts. The reason he only wrote a part of the 9 Nether Mageweth diagram and the Demonic Weapons Mystic Classic was to use them as bait to keep Lung Shiqi in suspense. Sure enough, Mo Ling continued. "However, these techniques are too advanced. Although your aptitude is not bad, it is not that easy to get started. I can also guide you in your cultivation." However, Lung Shiqi did not speak. He seemed to be thinking, and Mo Ling was also watching his reaction closely. In fact, Lung Shiqi's real consciousness had already gone to the gray space to cultivate these 3 techniques. It was just that the time required to cultivate a spiritual skill of this level was much longer than that of level 2 or level 3 spiritual skills. After a short while, Lung Shiqi's spiritual body came back to his senses and raised his head slightly. Mo Ling said in a confident tone, "Kid, have you thought it through? Follow me, and I guarantee you will." However, before Mo Ling could finish his sentence, he was greeted by 2 cyan moon blades. "Bastard!" The demonic spirit was furious. He opened his mouth to a terrifying extent. Billowing demonic chi spewed out from his mouth, condensing into different weapons to meet the saber light. The 2 collided fiercely, causing the spiritual space to tremble slightly. Even though Mo Ling's strength was less than 10%, the effect of Lung Shiqi's spiritual medicine was almost over, so this confrontation was actually evenly matched. However, Mo Ling's aura had clearly weakened again. Lung Shiqi did not dare to give it any chance to breathe. He turned his saber into a sword, and with a movement of his body, 12 cyan phantoms appeared. The devil spirit was both angry and frightened. Its little remaining devil chi rapidly condensed, forming its body and limbs. In addition to its original head, it formed the appearance of a black fiend devil corpse. Unfortunately, it was only the size of a baby. Lung Shiqi's 12 swords arrived. Mo Ling roared, and demonic patterns appeared on the demon corpse's body and connected to each other to form a set of black heavy armor. The 12 swords flashed quickly, causing the devil chi on Mo Ling's body to dissipate. Unfortunately, this was the spiritual space, and no one had a physical body. So, whether it was the pulse unblocking sword chi or the frost sword chi, they did not have any physical effect. This move, Dazzling Flower, did not directly defeat Mo Ling. However, Lung Shichi's attack did not stop at all. He withdrew his sword and condensed it into a spear. His eyes showed the courage of a warrior on the battlefield, and the tip of his spear pierced over with a cyan cross. The formation-breaking cross spear finally completely broke through the demonic pattern-heavy armor on Mo Ling's body, and the tip of the spear pierced into Mo Ling's head. Mo Ling suddenly let out a few shrill screams. At this moment, his whole body was collapsing, and even the shape of his head could not be maintained. All that was left was a black ball of light. Lung Shichi's spiritual body was almost unable to maintain its human form due to excessive consumption. Lung Shichi raised his right fist, and at the last moment he could still maintain his human form, he blasted out a tiger wave-stepping fist. As the heavy fist approached, Mo Ling no longer had any other means. He shouted sharply, "Madman, you are a madman. You don't want the supreme technique and endless resources. You are simply stupid to the extreme." At the last moment, he was still hoping that Lung Shichi would stop. Unfortunately, the fist finally fell, and Mo Ling was directly blown away by this fist. At this moment, Lung Shichi's spiritual body had turned back into a ball of light, and his aura was weak. Then he returned his consciousness to his body and immediately removed the 2 Beast Yuan battle patterns. Immediately, Lung Shichi's body suddenly burst open with bloody wounds one after another. Blood flowed out from his limbs and bones, and all the meridians in his body were aching faintly. This time, he had never activated the Beast Yuan battle patterns for so long. Now the burden on his body was too great, and he even felt like he was about to collapse. Lung Shichi endured the pain and swallowed a few elixirs to nourish his chi and blood. He shook his head with a bitter smile. He chose to get involved in the matter of Boiwanhu's tomb in order to seek opportunities to make a breakthrough quickly. Who knew that not only was there a huge secret hidden in the tomb, but there was also nothing at all. In the end, he was covered in injuries. However, Lung Shichi was not without gains. It could be said that he gained a lot, and that was the technique and spiritual technique given by Mo Ling. Although the 9 Nether Magic pattern was only incomplete, it was enough to compare to a rank 4 technique. This technique was the main technique of the Black Fiend Demonic Corpse. The core of this technique was the magic pattern. This magic pattern could be said to have endless magical uses, but Lung Shichi was only at the beginner level and had not had time to study the use of the magic pattern in detail. What was even more precious was that this cultivation method was a combination of spirit cultivation and body refinement. Lung Shichi was very satisfied with this. The reason he could survive today's battle was largely because his physical strength was not weak. Otherwise, after being possessed by Mo Ling, it would not take long for him to explode and die like Zhonglin. There would not be any follow-up. Before this, Lung Shichi had already cultivated the 8 stones horizontal training technique to the extreme. He did not have any other body refining techniques, so his physical strength had not improved for a long time. Now the 9 Nether Magic pattern could be regarded as making up for this. The demonic weapon secret technique was also a very high-level spiritual technique. Lung Shichi did not know how high it was. He only knew that the first move of this spiritual technique was comparable to a rank 4 spiritual technique. Lung Shichi did not dare to imagine how high the overall grade of this spiritual technique was. Although he also coveted the follow-up techniques and spiritual techniques, he knew that Mo Ling was too terrifying. He did not dare to keep it in his spiritual space. Others carried a kind old grandpa with them, but he had to carry 1,000-year-old demonic corpses Mo Ling. Who knew if he would be killed by Mo Ling one day? As for the Earth Fiend demonic Shadow Claw, it was also a genuine rank 4 spiritual technique. It could be said that it had greatly increased his strength. Overall, he had gained quite a lot from this trip. However, what made Lung Shiqi even more surprised was that he inadvertently discovered that his cultivation had unknowingly reached the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. Chapter 174. Lung Shiqi suddenly realized that his cultivation had inexplicably increased to the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. However, he was very clear that he had just broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm 2 days ago. Furthermore, the 6th level to the 7th level was a huge bottleneck. He had originally prepared for a long period of cultivation, but now he had broken through just like that. After a moment of joy, Lung Shiqi revealed a hint of suspicion. He hurriedly looked inside his Qi Si and discovered that the originally pure white spirit energy in his Qi Si was actually mixed with a small portion of black spirit energy. Is it the demonic spirit energy produced by cultivating the 9 nether demonic pattern? But even if I cultivate an additional rank 4 cultivation technique, it shouldn't be enough to reach the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm all of a sudden, right? Could it be that I accidentally absorbed a portion of the demon spirit's power? Lung Shiqi thought to himself, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He had once borrowed the power of the demon spirit, and then suddenly killed it. Perhaps there was still a bit of its power left in his body. To the demon spirit, it was just a little bit of power, but it was enough to allow Lung Shiqi to cross a small realm and ignore a bottleneck, directly breaking through. Lung Shiqi muttered, blood, these injuries are really worth it. At this moment, Lung Shiqi suddenly felt a slight fluctuation of spirit energy from below. He was surprised and immediately opened his supercilious eyes to look down. Now that all the formations in the mausoleum had been destroyed, his supercilious eyes could penetrate through without any obstruction, so he saw that there was a fierce battle going on in the mausoleum. He also saw a huge amount of spirit energy with an unknown aura. It was Su Lu and the other 5 demonic cultivators who were slaughtering the remaining spirit cultivators. Lung Shiqi thought to himself, are they killing people to silence them? That's good, so that my information won't be leaked out. However, when he saw one of the familiar spirit energies dissipate, his heart moved. Then, he adjusted his body for a while to recover some strength before breaking out of the ground and walking towards Shangyang City. The owner of the spirit energy that disappeared just now was Go Huarong. Now that Go Huarong was dead and the elites of the Qingkou Hall were almost all dead, the only ones left were the low-level spirit cultivators of the spirit assembly realm guarding the entrance of the mausoleum. In other words, Qingkou Hall only existed in name. Since that was the case, the resources that Qingkou Hall had accumulated over the years naturally could not be given to others. Before the news spread, Lung Shiqi dragged his injured body and stole a horse to rush to Shangyang City. While Lung Shiqi was hurrying on his way, 5 demonic cultivators stood in the middle of a blood-soaked azure field. At this moment, only the 5 of them were left alive in the tomb. Regardless of whether it was Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luo Yu Manor, or other spirit cultivator sects, or people from the Imperial Court like the city guards or rogue cultivators, all of them had perished here. However, the 5 demonic cultivators were not in good condition either. Each of them was heavily injured. Su Lu covered a bloody hole in his right chest and said hatefully, I didn't expect that old man Lu Lucheng to have so many trump cards. If it weren't for the 5 ghost demon corpses, we might have really lost our lives. This time, we really suffered a big loss. Although the Black Fiend demon corpses are useless, they still have some use. It can be considered as making up for a small loss. Senior brother, are we going to go out directly? I remember that there are still many people outside. Su Lu thought for a moment and said, That's right. Although the cultivation of those people outside is low, we are all injured. It's impossible to kill them all. If we go out rashly, we will definitely leak our information. We might as well hide here and use a secret technique to conceal ourselves. Then, we will find an opportunity to go out. After we go out, we will go find the devil's spirit. I will definitely make him unable to reincarnate forever. After that, the 5 of them walked to a dark corner of the mausoleum and sat down cross-legged. One of them released a faint demonic chi from his hands to cover them up, perfectly blending into the darkness. Outside Buyuan Ho's mausoleum, there were indeed many people gathered here. Some of them were from the Chinko Hall and the City Guard, while most of them were rogue cultivators. Almost all of these people were only in the spirit assembly realm. They knew that their cultivation was too low. They might not be able to find any treasures after going in, and would most likely lose their lives. Therefore, they were purely here to watch the show. They wanted to see who would be the final winner, which faction obtained what, how many people they lost, and so on. These would all become the hot topic of discussion in the future. However, they waited from late in the morning until the clear moon hung high in the sky. Still, they did not see anyone come out. Many people were anxious, especially the people from the Chinko Hall and the City Guard. They were afraid that something unexpected had happened. Many people were also discussing spiritedly. What's going on? It's just a mausoleum. Why haven't they come out after so long? There must be a lot of danger inside. It's not like you didn't feel the huge earthquake during the day. But it's already nighttime. Whether they are dead or alive, there should be a sound. Why don't we go in and take a look? If you want to go, then go. We don't know if so many experts are dead or alive. You're courting death. Some of them were worried, some were afraid, but most of them were curious. They were curious about what had happened inside. However, no one dared to go in and find out. The night passed just like that. However, no one came out. At this time, the people from the Chinko Hall and the City Guard could not sit still. They discussed for a while and decided to join forces to go in and take a look, with someone taking the lead. The rogue cultivators who wanted to watch the show followed, and one by one. They walked through the mechanism passageway and the corpse puppet mausoleum, buzzing all the way. However, when they approached the main mausoleum, they smelled the strong smell of blood from afar. The expressions of the people from the Chinko Hall and the City Guard changed. They quickened their steps and walked into the main mausoleum. Then, everyone who entered the main mausoleum was stunned like a statue. The people at the back were still pushing and shoving with some dissatisfaction. The moment they squeezed into the main mausoleum, what they saw was a horrifying scene of blood flowing like a river and broken limbs everywhere. Blurg, some people could not stand it and vomited on the spot. However, while these people were in a daze, no one noticed that 5 figures had quietly mixed into the crowd and left the main mausoleum. Those 5 people were naturally Su Lu and the other 4 devil cultivators. However, what everyone did not know was that in a mountain valley 10 miles away, 9 spirit cultivators in white robes were setting up an array and anxiously waiting for something. These people did not look very old, but they were all at the spirit transformation realm. They were the 9 elite disciples of the Hao Yi sect other than Lu Lucheng. At that time, before Lu Lucheng entered the mausoleum alone, he told them to hide here and set up a sound transmission array to wait for him to send news at any time. However, they waited for a long time and did not hear any news from Lu Lucheng. Their hearts were beating fast, afraid that something had happened to Lu Lucheng. At this moment, the array in front of them suddenly lit up. Then, Lu Lucheng's voice came from inside. He told them everything that had happened in the main mausoleum, including the matter of Bo Yuan Ho, the 5 devil cultivators, the black fiend demon corpse, the demon spirit, and the matter of them being silenced by the devil cultivators. At this moment, the 9 people knew of the great changes that had happened in the mausoleum. They were all dumbfounded, but Lu Lucheng's death made them feel even more grief and indignation. Quickly return to the sect. This matter can only be decided by the sect master himself. Before he left, Lung Shiqi suddenly remembered that not long ago, when he plundered Bao Pengyi's private vault, he also lost more than half of the resources. It could be said that it was exactly the same as this place. There was some doubt in his eyes, but then he remembered that Bao Pengyi had once climbed up to the heavenly cloud tower, and that the Chinko Hall had joined forces with the Liu Manor. They were a dignified, third-rate spirit cultivator sect. Why would they be related to a gang in the marketplace? I'm afraid that Bao Pengyi and Go Huarong had a hand over more than half of their precious resources to climb up to the spirit cultivator sect. Unfortunately, the Three Blades gang had already been destroyed. The Chinko Hall only existed in name, and the city guards were also less than a tenth of them. I'm afraid that Shangyang City will be in chaos for a while. However, none of this had anything to do with him. After he packed everything up, he silently left with the Blood Sun crystal and more than 600 system coins. After that, Lung Shiqi spent a day refining the Blood Sun crystal, absorbing the qi and blood energy within it. The injuries on his body had also recovered by 70 to 80%, and he only needed to rest for a few more days. Counting the time, it's been more than 20 days since I accepted the mission to assassinate Bao Pengyi. There are only a few days left until the mission deadline. I really didn't expect that this trip would be so difficult. Lung Shiqi softly muttered to himself, then returned to the Shadow Wind Ridge branch. Along the way, he would occasionally use supercilious eyes to investigate the surroundings, afraid that he would accidentally encounter the 5 demonic cultivators. However, it was obvious that he was overthinking. He arrived at the Shadow Wind Ridge very smoothly. However, when he approached the entrance of the branch, he subconsciously stopped and looked at the huge, scorched pit beside him. This was the place where he was beaten half to death by Tang Haoqing from the Tang family 10 days ago. He would always remember that punch. Then he walked into the branch that he had not seen for a long time. Looking at the crowded square, he secretly sighed in relief. He had been wandering around for nearly a month, and he was finally back. At this time, a black-clothed assassin brushed past Lung Shiqi. After that person walked past him, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and exclaimed, "Lung Shiqi." Huh. Lung Shiqi could not help but turn his head to look at that person, but he found that he did not seem to know him at all. In fact, that person did not know Lung Shiqi. The cause of all this was when Tang Haoqing came to cause trouble 10 days ago. Tang Haoqing's punch killed Fan Zhengqiu on the spot, but Lung Shiqi went missing. The Grand Pavilion leader, Ghost Ju, was so angry that he severely injured Tang Haoqing and killed 2 Tang family disciples. Since then, he had asked everyone to look for Lung Shiqi, so people here were very clear about his body shape and appearance. But after searching for more than 10 days, there was no news, so everyone assumed that he was dead. But now, Lung Shiqi came back by himself. As soon as that person's voice fell, the noisy square suddenly quieted down, and everyone's eyes gathered on Lung Shiqi. Feeling the eyes of the crowd, Lung Shiqi was a little surprised. The black-clothed assassin stared at him and said, "Lung Shiqi, you're not dead?" At this time, other people also rushed over and said one after another, "This kid is really tough. This boy is so tough that he can survive the attack of a gang spirit realm master." The Grand Pavilion leader said that he might not die, but I didn't believe it. The Grand Pavilion leader is really the Grand Pavilion leader. The Grand Pavilion leader fought for him and seriously injured Tang Haoqing. It's really satisfying. But recently, we've been asking around for news about him, but we got nothing. Where's he hiding? These assassins rarely got together to chat like this because there was really nothing worth gathering together. They usually repeated the boring life of cultivation and tasks, so it was rare for them to chat like this, so more and more people gathered here. Lung Shiqi looked like he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, he had put on a mask, so no one could see it. At this time, the savior came. A red-clothed assassin embroidered with golden patterns came over. Everyone stood up straight and said in unison, "Lord Guyan." Guyan's voice was very deep. He said, "Let's go." The others immediately scattered. Guyan said to Lung Shiqi, "The Grand Pavilion leader is looking for you. Come with me. Chapter 176. After a month, Lung Shichi saw Ghost Ju, the Grand Pavilion Master of the Donglin County branch. He found that Ghost Ju had a lot more white hair in his bun. Furthermore, Lung Shichi could even sense a trace of lethargy from his body. He immediately remembered that someone had mentioned that the Grand Pavilion Master had seriously injured Tang Haoqing. He thought to himself, it said that the Grand Pavilion Master is very old, and his chi and blood have begun to decline. He can't fight at will. Could it be that his chi and blood have deteriorated because he forced himself to fight? Ghost Ju was relieved when he saw Lung Shichi walk in unscathed. He said slowly, "You're really troublesome. When Tang Haoqing attacked, I sensed an aura escape. After that, all the disciples in the branch tried to find out about you, but there was no news, so they all thought you were dead. However, I know you're not simple, so I reported to the Pavilion Master that you were missing." Lung Shichi could not help but feel a little embarrassed when he heard this. After he recovered from his injuries, he had disguised himself and entered Shenyang City. He had only come into contact with Mao Kai, and then he had been hiding under the Chinko Hall. It would be strange if those people could find him. Mao Kai had broken the rules of the Blood Robe Pavilion to give him the information, so Mao Kai definitely did not dare to say that he had seen Lung Shichi. Lung Shichi immediately said, "Although I escaped, I was seriously injured and on the verge of death. I found a hidden place to heal and did not dare to show up. I've troubled the Grand Pavilion Master. It's good that you're back. I see that your cultivation has improved a lot. It's a blessing in disguise," Ghost Ju said meaningfully. Lung Shichi knew that he could not hide his cultivation for the Grand Pavilion Master, so he had already prepared an excuse. Just as he was about to explain, Ghost Ju waved his hand indifferently. "Everyone has their own opportunities. Since you're back, you should rest for a few days. Wait for the new Grand Pavilion Master to take over before you accept any missions." The new Grand Pavilion Master? Lung Shichi could not help but be stunned. Ghost Ju said, "I've already sent the news of your return to the Pavilion Master. Although you're not dead, you had an accident in my hands. I still have to bear the responsibility. I'm sure I won't be able to sit in the position of Pavilion Leader anymore." The Pavilion Branch Great Pavilion Leader was a position of great power in the Blood Road Pavilion. Although Ghost Ju was no longer one of the 9 Underworld Blood Cloak Assassins, the Underworld Blood Cloak Assassins were all concentrated in the General Pavilion. There were 3 of the strongest people above them, so they didn't have much power and benefits to share. On the contrary, although the resources of the Branch Pavilion were not as good as the main pavilion, the Grand Pavilion Leader had the highest authority here. He was equivalent to a local tyrant. Some were even more well-off than the Netherworld Blood-Clothed Assassins. However, because of Lung Shichi, Guei Ju wanted to step down from his post. This made Lung Shichi feel a bit guilty. "Great Pavilion Leader, this disciple, there's no need to say anymore." Guei Ju interrupted Lung Shichi and said, "I don't care about the fight for power. I'll return to the main pavilion and become an outer sect elder. You, on the other hand, should be more careful in the future." "Me?" Lung Shichi was a little confused. "Yes. In fact, even if you didn't have an accident this time, the General Pavilion would transfer me back sooner or later. Then they would definitely send that person to succeed the position of Pavilion Leader." The more Lung Shichi listened, the more confused he became. However, he was also keenly aware that all these changes seemed to be related to him. So he asked, "Who will it be?" "Feng Shamo." Guei Ju's tone became a little dignified. Lung Shichi was very strange to hear this name. He didn't know who it was at all. Guei Ju explained, "This person is the chief pro-disciple of the Pavilion Leader. His cultivation has just entered the gang spirit realm. He deserves to be the leader of his generation of disciples." The chief pro-disciple of the Pavilion Leader. Lung Shichi's heart skipped a beat. At this time, he thought of another person, Yushu. Yushu was also the disciple of the Pavilion Leader. That was to say, The trusted pavilion leader of Donglin County was very likely to be Yushu's senior fellow apprentice. Gue Ju continued. Feng Shamo is arrogant and unruly. He thinks highly of himself and acts decisively and ruthlessly. Although his cultivation has just entered the gang spirit realm, his combat capability is comparable to the middle stage of the gang spirit realm. In fact, such a person is not suitable to be the pavilion leader of the branch, but the pavilion leader will definitely send him here. Lung Shiqi, you have to remember that you can't be too close to Feng Shamo or too distant from him. You have to control the degree. Hearing this, Lung Shiqi knew that Guiju's words were more profound. He vaguely felt that he seemed to be inexplicably in an undercurrent. He nodded and said, "Thank you for your advice, pavilion leader. Well, that's all I have to say. You can leave now." Lung Shiqi immediately bowed and left. After coming out of the pavilion leader, he was full of worries. He thought that he could avoid the internal disputes of the sect by coming to the branch in Donglin County. But he didn't expect that an invisible storm had already formed around him. But he couldn't do anything, which made him very uncomfortable. Phew! Lung Shiqi couldn't help but sigh and spit out all the depression in his heart. He quickly adjusted his mentality and walked to the square. When he came to the branch for the first time, he didn't pay much attention to it. At this time, he looked carefully and found that there were hundreds of black-clothed killers in the square, all of whom were spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm. In addition, there were more than 20 blood-clothed killers, all of whom were masters in the 4 realms of celestial being. The weakest one was in the spiritual pulse realm, and most of the killers were performing tasks outside. Yu Jinyu was a deacon elder in the Heavenly Cloud Tower, but she was only a blood-clothed killer in the blood-clothed pavilion. At this moment, Lung Shiqi finally realized the power and horror of the blood-clothed pavilion. Just this branch alone was comparable to a second-rate force. Lung Shiqi then walked to a desk, took out Bao Pengyi's head, and handed it to a gray-clothed disciple opposite him. He said, 2-star mission, assassinate the leader of the Shangyang City's 3 Swords Gang, Bao Pengyi. He was here to hand in the mission, which had been delayed for nearly a month. It was finally time to hand in the mission. Fortunately, Bao Pengyi's head had been stored in the system space and showed no signs of decay. Otherwise, even if it was stored in the mustard seed bag, there would be some changes after so long. The gray-clothed disciple took the head and took out a thick book to flip through. After a short while, he took out a red brush and sketched on it, saying, "May I borrow your identity token, sir?" Lung Shiqi took out his identity token and placed it on the desk. The gray-clothed disciple inserted it into a blood-red groove, then took out something similar to a card and swiped it on it. Then, the number 50 appeared on Lung Shiqi's identity token, and finally disappeared into the token. The gray-clothed disciple returned the token with both hands and took out a small package containing spirit transformation pills and spirit stones. He said, "Sir, all your rewards are here." Lung Shiqi nodded and took the package and the token. Then, he returned to his stone room and prepared to study the 9 nether magic pattern. Chapter 177. Lung Shiqi returned to the stone room and began to carefully study the 9 nether mageweth diagram. Using the system's infinite skill points, he was now at the entry level. However, infinite skill points could only allow him to reach the entry level of the technique. He could only rely on himself to comprehend the rest. Currently, Lung Shiqi already possessed 2 high-grade cultivation methods. The other was naturally the 7 fiend blood kill art. Unfortunately, these 2 cultivation methods only had the first 3 levels. However, in this way, there was a comparison between the 2 techniques. After studying for a while, Lung Shiqi found that the 9 nether mageweth diagram seemed to be more applicable than the 7 evil blood technique. He had the first 3 levels of both techniques, but he could now condense the mageweth by practicing the 9 nether mageweth diagram. However, he could not use the characteristics of the 7 evil blood technique. Then, Lung Shichi began to condense the Mageweth according to the technique. He closed his eyes, and a faint layer of demonic aura emerged around his body. The demonic aura was still floating. Under the control of Lung Shichi, the demonic aura gradually gathered and formed a tadpole-like Mageweth. The first Mageweth was successfully condensed. Lung Shichi's mind moved, and the Mageweth continued to wander around his body. He could clearly feel that wherever the Mageweth stopped, his strength would be increased. The effect of the increase was not very obvious. It was only about 5%. At this time, Lung Shichi thought of the countless Mageweths that appeared on his body after being possessed by the demon spirit. How many Mageweths had he condensed? Therefore, he still had great expectations for the 9 nether Mageweth diagram. He immediately began to condense the second Mageweth. According to the technique, the spirit transformation realm was the lowest standard to practice this technique. Every time he advanced to a higher level, he could condense 1 more Mageweth. In other words, he could condense up to 7 Mageweths now. Not long after, Lung Shichi had successfully condensed the second Mageweth. He attached both Mageweths to his fist and immediately felt the strength of his fist increase by about 10%. After about 4 hours, Lung Shichi finally condensed 7 demonic patterns. With all 7 demonic patterns on his fist, his strength had actually increased to 60%. It was already quite extraordinary. Unfortunately, the Lung Shichi consumed a lot of spiritual energy to maintain 7 Mageweths at the same time, so it could only be used at critical moments. Even so, he was already very satisfied. He murmured, "If I were to use the Beast Origin battle pattern and the demonic pattern at the same time, how much stronger would I be?" At this moment, he also remembered that when he was possessed by the demon spirit, he had also done the same thing. He remembered that at that time, he had easily defeated the Spirit Pulse stage Eugenio. He even fought one against 5 Spirit Vein stage demonic cultivators. Lung Shichi longed for that kind of power, but he knew that power could not be obtained overnight, and he could not go astray just to obtain power in a short period of time. Therefore, after condensing the demonic patterns, Lung Shichi continued to cultivate and recuperate. On the 3rd day, his injuries were more or less healed, but there was quite a commotion outside the stone room. Lung Shichi walked out of the stone room with a hint of doubt. When he walked to the square, he saw 2 people talking in the center of the square, while the others were standing far away. One of them was the pavilion's grand pavilion leader, Gui Ju. The other person was wearing a blood-red robe with golden patterns, and there were 3 patterns on his mask that looked like wind and blade marks. Even though no one could see his face, they could feel the obvious arrogance coming from him. Then, this person's identity was obvious. Lung Shichi thought to himself, "Is he Feng Shamo?" He came so quickly. He still remembered that when he and Fan Zhengshu came here from the General Pavilion, it took them 7 or 8 days, even if they traveled day and night. But this Feng Shamo had arrived in just 3 days. Gui Ju said with a mocking tone. Martial Nephew Feng came really quickly. Feng Shamo's voice sounded a little low, and he replied, "I just happened to be nearby." And he spoke to Gui Ju without the slightest respect for his martial uncle, which made the others a little dissatisfied. Gui Ju had been the Grand Pavilion leader of the Donglin County branch for many years, and most of the assassins here were promoted by him. They were all in awe of Gui Ju. Gui Ju said casually, "Since Martial Nephew Feng is here, then the Donglin County branch will be handed over to you from now on. This is the Grand Pavilion leader's seal." After he finished speaking, a small dark gray box suddenly appeared in his palm. Feng Shamo took the small box without hesitation, weighed it in his hand, and put it away in his mustard seed bag. He said, "Martial Uncle Gui Ju, do you have anything else to say?" Hearing this, even Lung Shichi couldn't help but frown. "Feng Shamo, you've lost everyone's trust." Gui Ju was his martial uncle, and he had been in charge of the Donglin County branch for many years. Now that he had been ordered to leave after handing over the Grand Pavilion leader's seal, it left an impression in the hearts of others that he was arrogant and unreasonable. This wasn't good for him to smoothly take over the Donglin County branch. However, he didn't think Feng Shamo was wrong. Perhaps Feng Shamo just came to the branch to pave the way for his future. He didn't really want to manage the branch. Gue Ju didn't care too much about Feng Shamo's words. Most of them were black-striped, blood-clothed assassins at the Spirit Pulse stage. Not long after, Feng Shamo walked over, accompanied by two golden-striped, blood-red, clothed assassins, Guyan and Taiying. Today, I will only say one thing. The branch has already accepted a 7-star mission. Feng Shamo said, straightforwardly. A 7-star mission? When everyone heard this, huge waves rose in their hearts, but no one dared to say a single word. This Feng Shamo was currently in the middle of a new official's life, and they didn't want to be unlucky and lose their lives. Lung Shiqi couldn't help but be moved. He was clear about the missions in the blood-clothed pavilion. As a black-clothed assassin, he could only accept 1-star and 2-star missions. The black-striped blood-red clothed assassins could accept 3-star and 4-star missions, and so on. In other words, only golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins could accept a 7-star mission. However, this type of mission had always been rare. For example, the two golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins, Guyan and Taiying, hadn't accepted a mission in a long time. Thus, they had been helping the pavilion leader manage the affairs of the branch. This Feng Shamo just came yesterday, and he already has a 7-star mission today. How can it be so coincidental? Besides, what does a 7-star mission have to do with us? Lung Shiqi was very confused. Not only him, but almost everyone had the same doubts. Feng Shamo continued. This mission is very unusual. Even a golden-striped, blood-red, clothed assassin can hardly complete it alone, so it will be a group mission. Lung Shiqi finally understood why Feng Shamo called everyone together. But he was more confused about what kind of mission could not be completed by a golden-striped, blood-red, clothed assassin in Gang Spirit Realm alone. How could they get involved in such a mission? Feng Shamo didn't keep them guessing and said directly, this mission is to destroy the third-rate force in Donglin County, Golden Wing Academy. Hiss. Even though everyone was restraining themselves from speaking, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they heard this. This was the first time they had heard of a mission to destroy a sect. Then, who could have such financial resources to invite the blood-clothed pavilion to destroy a third-rate sect? At this time, Lung Shiqi finally knew Feng Shamo's intention. Although Golden Wing Academy was only a third-rate sect, it must have many disciples. Not to mention a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin. Even a ghostly blood-red, clothed assassin might not be able to complete this mission. After all, there were so many people in a force. They were not fools who would stand there and let you kill them. As long as they fled in all directions, even a great master in oneness of heaven and man realm could not kill them all. So this time, a large number of assassins had to work together to complete the mission. Guyan, you tell me the list of those who will participate in this mission. Feng Shamo said to Guyan next to him. Guyan nodded and took 2 steps forward with a booklet. Everyone else stared at the booklet eagerly, hoping that their names would be on it. As a third-rate sect, Golden Wing Academy was not weak, but the strength of the branch in Donglin County was stronger. Moreover, these assassins were best at killing skills. Their combat effectiveness was superior among the spirit cultivators of the same level. It was not a big problem for them to destroy Golden Wing Academy. Therefore, as long as they could participate, they would be people who had completed a 7-star mission. It could be said that they were plated with a layer of real gold. Guyan called out one name after another, and everyone who was called out stood in front. When he called out the 2 words, I see death, Lung Shiqi could not help but turn his head to look. I see Death's figure looked very thin, and on the mask was a scene of an ice prison. This Bingshang's reputation was quite high in the branch pavilion. His most shocking achievement was that he had assassinated the Tang clan's genius, Tang Heyu. Because of this, he had attracted Tang Haoqing, causing Lung Shiqi to be seriously injured. However, Lung Shiqi did not have any complaints. He just looked at them with pure interest. As the names were called out one by one, hundreds of people had gathered in front of the square. Guyan also called out the last name, Lung Shiqi. Chapter 179. Golden Wing Academy was quite famous in Donglin County. It was not because of its strength, but because it was not only a spiritual cultivation sect, but also an academy. In Golden Wing Academy, in addition to its own spiritual cultivation disciples, there would be lectures every day. Therefore, there had been a large number of scholars gathering for a long time. In particular, Golden Wing Academy would hold a lecture on scriptures every year, which would attract many scholars and officials to come and watch. Not only that, even some of the spiritual cultivation sects around would send some disciples to support the scene. Today, the annual lecture on scriptures of Golden Wing Academy would begin again. All forces and students gathered here. In a forest more than 10 miles away from Golden Wing Academy, there were hundreds of murderous blood-robed pavilion killers hiding. This group assassination mission was led by Feng Shamo in person, but Gu Yin and Tai Ying did not follow. Among the remaining killers, there were 2 silver-striped blood-robed killers and more than a dozen black-striped blood-robed killers. The rest were all black-robed killers. With such a lineup, it was not a big problem to destroy Golden Wing Academy, but it was still a little difficult to completely destroy it. However, if Feng Shamo, a master of Gang Spirit Realm, was added, it would not be a problem. Lung Shiqi was meditating in the crowd with his eyes closed. Along the way, he had been thinking about a question. Why did Feng Shamo choose to carry out the mission during the lecture on scriptures? Although all the disciples of Golden Wing Academy could gather on this day, there were also a large number of disciples of spiritual cultivation sections. If they interfered, should he kill them or not? Furthermore, from the looks of it, Feng Shamo seemed to want to fight his way in. It should be known that Bloodrobe Pavilion was a force of assassins. Although these disciples had rich killing skills, they were better at assassination. If they could find a suitable opportunity, they could even make Golden Wing Academy disappear silently. Such an open and above-board attack was not in line with their usual style. Not only Lung Shiqi had such doubts, but others also had such doubts. However, Feng Shamo's killing power was too strong, and no one dared to ask. Not long after, a few figures quickly disappeared into the forest. They came to Feng Shamo and whispered something to him. Feng Shamo immediately emitted a cold, killing intent and said, "The time has come." At this time, the scholars and spirit cultivators of the Golden Wing Academy were coming and going. The dean of the academy, Kai, was greeting the guests with a face full of glory. "Dean, it's been a long time since we last met. After listening to Dean's lecture, I felt as if I was enlightened and benefited greatly." "You flatter me. Brother Wong is too kind. Dean, he is too modest." At this time, a clear voice came from the entrance of the academy. "Flying Tiger City, Lord Liao has arrived." "Haha, Brother Wong, please wait for a moment. I will go and welcome City Lord Liao. I won't disturb you any longer. Dean he please. Sect Leader Du of Heavenly Cloud Tower has arrived. Luo Yu Manor's Manor Lord Luo has arrived. Grandmaster Lu of the Hao E Sect has arrived." 3 consecutive reports came from a gate. The originally lively Golden Wing Academy suddenly quieted down for a moment and then burst into an uproar. Did the doorman make a mistake? Or did I hear it wrong? You didn't hear wrongly. The leaders of the 3 spirit cultivator sects have come personally. Haha, it seems that the status of us scholars is rising steadily. The Golden Wing Academy has too much face. Even the dean of the academy, Kai, was stunned for a moment. In the past, the 3 sects would also send people to participate in the discussion, but those who came were only disciples who came to broaden their horizons. But today, the leaders of the 3 sects had all come. The status of these three people was not lower than Helian's. Spirit light flashed under his feet, and he directly went to the gate to welcome them at the fastest speed. Heliankai cupped his fists and said, "The three of you have come together really brings light to my small courtyard. Please come in." The arrival of these three people pushed the atmosphere in the academy to its peak. Everyone was talking loudly, and from time to time, a few poems would appear, winning applause. Heliankai welcomed the three sect leaders into the main hall to take a seat. Along the way, he also sensed that the three of them did not seem to have come purely to study the scriptures, because their expressions were always a little gloomy. Logically speaking, to be able to become the leader of a spirit cultivator sect, not showing one's emotions was the most basic requirement. But these three people all looked like this, so it could be seen that something big had happened. The leader of the Heavenly Cloud Tower, Du Mingxian, was the first to speak. "Dinhe, the three of us have indeed come here to discuss other matters." When Heliankai heard this, he secretly thought that it was indeed so. He made a pleased gesture and said, "I'm all ears." The three of them coming together could be said to have given enough face to the Golden Wing Academy, and also made the Academy's reputation soar. So he had to give enough face to them. Just as Du Mingxian was about to speak, the doorman's voice came from the door. "The Elder of Mountain of Books, Elder Li, has arrived." Whoosh! Heliankai suddenly stood up. Not only him, but Du Mingxian and the other two also stood up. Heliankai looked at the three of them with a slightly troubled expression. Luo Xiuwu, the master of the Fallen Feather Manor, said, "Since the Elder of Mountain of Books has arrived, Dean, he should go and welcome him first, so as not to neglect him." Heliankai said, "Please wait for a moment. I'm really impolite." After Heliankai walked out, Du Mingxian and the others sat down and said, "I didn't expect the Elder of Mountain of Books to come. Heliankai is really influential." Luo Xiuwen added, "I've long heard that Heliankai has a good relationship with the Elder of Mountain of Books, but I didn't expect it to be true." At this time, Lu Yi, the master of the Howie sect, said in a low voice, "It's good that he's here. If he can draw the Elder of Mountain of Books in, the 5 evil cultivators will definitely be unable to escape." The Elder of Mountain of Books, Li Jianyuan, was a casual cultivator in Donglin County, but even the masters of third-class sects like Du Mingxian had to bow their heads to him, because the Elder of Mountain of Books cultivation was in the gang spirit realm. Casual cultivators had always been disliked by spiritual cultivation sects, but casual cultivators in the gang spirit realm were still respected by them. This was what strength meant. Soon, Heliankai and a gray-haired old man came over. Du Mingxian and the other two also stood up to welcome them. At the same time, at the gate of the Golden Wing Academy, a man in a blood-red robe with golden stripes and a mask on his face appeared. Before the doorman approached him, he felt cold all over, but he still asked, "May I know your name, so that I can report it?" The man put his hands behind his back and said proudly, "Feng Shemo, a gold-striped killer in blood-red robe of the Blood-Red Robe Pavilion, the head of the Sub-Pavilion in Donglin County. I'm here to pay you a visit." His voice was not directed at the doorman. Instead, it spread to every corner of the academy. Upon hearing this, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Chapter 180. For those who came to attend the Golden Wing Academy, today was a feast for the eyes. First, the leaders of 3 spirit cultivation sects came together, and then the Elder of Mountain of Books, who was in the gang spirit realm, came, which already surprised them. But the arrival of Feng Shamo made them feel surprised instead of happy. The Blood Robe Pavilion was one of the top forces in the world, one of the top 7 forces in the world. Although the Golden Wing Academy was also a spirit cultivation sect, it was completely different from the Blood Robe Pavilion. And the person who came was the leader of the pavilion in Donglin County. In terms of identity, people like Heliankai were not even qualified to see him. It should have been a great joy for such a figure to come in person. But what kind of sect was the Blood Robe Pavilion? It was the most powerful killer force in the Thunderfire dynasty and even in the entire Falling Star continent. What could happen when the Blood-Robed Pavilion came? Could it be that they came to attend the discussion of scriptures? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The sudden appearance of Feng Shamo cast a shadow over their hearts. This was the deterrent power of a top force. The expressions of several people in the main hall of the academy suddenly changed, and confusion appeared in their eyes. Especially Helionkai. He really couldn't figure out what the Blood-Robed Pavilion wanted to do. But in short, it was nothing good. Du Mingxian and the other two also had an ominous feeling. At this time, the Elder of Mountain of Books said, "Since they're distinguished guests, why don't we go to greet them together?" Helionkai looked at the Elder of Mountain of Books gratefully. Although the Elder of Mountain of Books was far inferior to Feng Shamo, his realm was the same. Moreover, the Elder of Mountain of Books had been in the Gang Spirit realm for many years. With him here, he had the confidence to face Feng Shamo. And he also called Du Mingxian and the other two. In addition, the leaders of the 3 spirit cultivation sects were here. Even the Blood-Robed Pavilion could not go too far. When Helionkai, the Elder of Mountain of Books, and Du Mingxian arrived at the gate, there were already hundreds of people gathered here, but the scene was very quiet. When Helionkai saw Feng Shamo for the first time, his heart quivered because he clearly felt the killing intent from Feng Shamo. In other words, Feng Shamo was simply releasing his killing intent openly. Shrouded by the killing intent of a master of Gang Spirit Realm, the people present dared not to breathe. Helionkai walked forward and asked carefully, "Great Pavilion Leader, please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." Helionkai could be said to have lowered himself to the lowest level, but Feng Shamo didn't give him any face at all. He said, "Forgive? Then you can atone for your crimes with your death." Hearing this, Helionkai's face immediately sank. The large group of people behind him also opened their mouths, but none of them dared to say anything. Helionkai suppressed the anger and uneasiness in his heart and said, "Today is the Golden Wing Academy's Scripture Study Conference. You must be here to participate in this event." "That's right. I'm here to participate in the grand meeting. However, it's not your grand meeting. It's mine. A grand meeting of slaughter." As soon as Feng Shamo's voice fell, figures suddenly leaped out from the top of the wall of the Golden Wing Academy. Each of them stared at the disciples of the Golden Wing Academy with unfriendly gazes. The people of the Golden Wing Academy were very easy to recognize. They were all wearing white robes with a pair of faint golden wings on their backs. The moment these people appeared, the expressions of everyone in the academy changed. There was no need to think too much. Looking at the masked people, everyone knew that they were the assassins of the Bloodcloth Pavilion. Moreover, among the 100 or so people, the weakest was at the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. This is the strength of a branch of the Bloodcloth Pavilion. Helionkai was horrified when he saw this. He pretended to be calm and asked, "Great Pavilion Leader, what is the meaning of this?" However, Feng Shamo didn't answer him. What answered him was Feng Shamo's blade. Feng Shamo waved his blade 3 times in a row, and 3 giant blades of wind shot out. The blades of wind cut through the air and directly tore through the sky toward Helionkai. How could Helionkai have expected Feng Shamo to suddenly attack? However, just as the blades of wind were about to reach him, a palm appeared before him. This palm was extremely withered, but it contained a majestic power. With a slap of the palm, Black Spirit Gang surged out and crushed the 3 blades of wind. The one who attacked was the Old Man of Mountain of Books, Li Jianyuan. The Old Man of Mountain of Books said seriously, "Young man, why are you so arrogant? This is the Bloodcloth Pavilion's business. Unrelated people, leave," Feng Shamo said coldly. The Old Man of Mountain of Books shook his head and said, "I have always admired Dean He. The Golden Wing Academy has always been generous and has helped countless scholars. It can be said that they have accumulated boundless virtue. The Bloodcloth Pavilion is not afraid of killing people by doing this." Feng Shamo sneered. What a good Old Man of Mountain of Books. Are you going to protect the Golden Wing Academy today? Young man, you have just entered the Spirit Gang realm and have yet to condense the true Spirit Gang. The old man at Mountain of Books said. His meaning was also very clear. With him here, he could completely stop Feng, Sha, and Mo. Moreover, behind him were Du Mingxian and the other two Spirit Aperture Realm experts, as well as disciples of other sections. As long as these people worked together, they wouldn't be afraid of the Bloodcloth Pavilion. However, the old man of Mountain of Books was taking it for granted. At this time, the Bloodcloth assassins on the wall shouted in unison, "The Bloodcloth Pavilion will only kill the people of the Golden Wing Academy. Everyone else, leave quickly to avoid an unexpected disaster." As soon as these words came out, what made the old man of Mountain of Books' heart turn cold was that all the outsiders in the academy scattered at the fastest speed. Even Du Mingxian and the other two silently retreated. Obviously, they didn't want, or rather, didn't dare to get involved in the Bloodcloth Pavilion's affairs. When Liang Kai saw this scene, his heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Those who usually called him brothers, those who respected him, had all abandoned him at this moment. At this moment, he finally understood the coldness of human nature. Feng Shamo laughed and said, "Old man of Mountain of Books, I will use you to test my saber." Immediately, Feng Sha and Mo slashed out with his saber. Suddenly, a sharp wind power erupted and attacked the old man of Mountain of Books. The other Bloodcloth Pavilion assassins also jumped off the wall and rushed into the crowd of the Golden Wing Academy. There were two Spirit Aperture Realm experts in the Golden Wing Academy. One was naturally Liang Kai, and the other was the Elder of the Library, Duan Jiming. This time, the Bloodcloth Pavilion also sent two Spirit Aperture Realm assassins. One of them, Duya, went against Liang Kai, while the other, Bat Yi, went against Duan Jiming. In addition, there were also 8 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators in the academy. They were all stopped by the Bloodcloth assassins of the same realm. The remaining few Bloodcloth assassins and Blackcloth assassins rushed into the crowd of low-level disciples of the Golden Wing Academy. There were hundreds of disciples in the academy, but there were only a few dozen Spirit Transformation Realm cultivators. The rest were all in the Pure Spirit Realm and the Spirit Assembly Realm. Moreover, they usually cultivated or played with words. How could they be a match for the assassins who had experienced countless battles? For a moment, the entire Golden Wing Academy was covered in blood. Thinking of this, Lung Shiqi stopped playing with the two people in front of him. Suddenly, a dark magic pattern appeared on his body. The magic pattern moved and attached to his spirit saber. He had enhanced the power of the spirit saber with the devil veins. Then he used the floating spirit steps and moved like a ghost. With a few moves, he easily killed 2 disciples of the academy at the spirit transformation realm. Then he killed his way into the crowd. There were also a few blood-red assassins here. Soon, all of the Spirit Transformation Realm disciples were slaughtered. Thus, the few blood-clothed assassins immediately surrounded the Spirit Pulse Stage cultivators of the Academy, while the rest of the black-clothed assassins chased after the Pure Spirit Stage and Spirit Assembly Stage disciples like wolves in a flock of sheep. The entire battle immediately leaned towards the Blood Robe Pavilion. Liang Kai realized that if this continued, they would definitely be exterminated. Thus, he shouted, "Run! Run as far as you can." Since even the dean had said so, many people immediately tried to escape. However, there were even more assassins who chased after them. Moreover, wherever the fleeing people passed, they would not give way to the onlookers. In the end, they would still be killed by the assassins. It was not that they were unwilling to give way, but they did not dare to. Once they gave way, if they were killed by the Blood Robe Pavilion's assassins, how could they reason with them? When Liang Kai saw his disciples being slaughtered and his so-called friends not even giving way, his face was filled with grief and indignation. He immediately swallowed a pitch-black pill. The aura of his body began to surge, reaching the peak of the spirit aperture realm. Dui was suppressed in an instant, but he still mocked. Dean, he has always been noble and virtuous. In the end, you actually used the methods of a demonic cultivator to fight against the enemy. How laughable. Lian Sai's face was already distorted beyond recognition. He only wanted to kill Dui now. He exerted his cultivation of the peak of the spirit aperture realm to the extreme and used the Golden Wing Academy's unique skill, the Golden Wing Heaven-Breaking Hand. Both of his arms turned golden, and several crystal-clear spirit veins and spirit apertures appeared on his arms. His hands flew, and hundreds of hand shadows submerged Dui. Dui used a dagger that looked like the teeth of a demonic beast. Facing Lian Sai's fierce moves, he could only retreat. He also knew that Lian Kai could not maintain this state for a long time. As long as he could drag it out, it would be fine. At this time, Lung Shichi caught up with a pure spirit realm disciple who was running away and killed him without any suspense. Then he looked around. In this short period of time, most of the low-level disciples of the academy had been killed. There were also some black-clothed assassins who went to besiege the spirit vein realm cultivators of the academy. Just as Lung Shichi was about to go to help, 6 people jumped into the academy. One of them shouted, "Stop!" As soon as he finished speaking, he was stopped by the young girl next to him. She whispered, "Don't make trouble. This is not a place where we can intervene." The assassins of the Blood Cloak Pavilion ignored the young man's words and were still chasing the disciples of the academy. Lung Shichi leisurely looked at the 6 people, 5 men and 1 woman. They were all in their 20s, but their cultivation was not low. The 5 youths were all in the spirit transformation realm. Some were in the middle stage, and some were in the late stage. The most powerful one was the girl. She was actually in the spirit vein realm. Looking at her appearance, she was only in her 20s, but she had the cultivation of the spirit vein realm. It could be seen that her identity was not simple. The girl immediately raised her voice and said, "I am Tang Wanxiu, a member of the Tang family of Donglin County. I have no intention of interfering in your affairs." After she finished speaking, the young man who was stopped by her was unhappy and said, "Cousin, the people of the Blood Cloak Pavilion seriously injured Uncle some time ago. How can we stand by and do nothing? Let me go up and teach them a lesson." "Tang Apu, shut up!" Tang Wanxiu shouted. You, a concubine's daughter, dare to speak to me like this. So what if your cultivation is high? In the future, I will inherit." Before Tang Hapu could finish his words, Tang Wanxiu covered his mouth. However, the young man's voice was heard by Feng Shamo. His mouth moved, and his voice clearly spread to every corner of the academy. "The Tang family is so powerful. Disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, listen up. Whoever kills a disciple of the Tang family will receive double the reward for this mission. Whoever kills Tang Wanxiu or Tang Hapu will receive 10 times the reward." Lung Shichi immediately grasped the hilt of his saber. Chapter 182. Tang Wanxiu was the daughter of a concubine of the Tang family in Donglin County, but her cultivation talent was extremely high. Previously, she was ranked 2nd in the Tang family, second only to Tang Hiyu. After Tang Hiyu was assassinated by Bing Shang, Tang Wanxiu was pushed out to be the face of the Tang family. A large amount of resources were poured into her, but her cultivation was still stuck at the peak of the spirit transformation realm. For the sake of the Tang family's reputation, the upper echelons of the Tang family actually used external items to forcefully help Tang Wanxiu break through to the spirit vein realm. This was equivalent to destroying her cultivation future. However, the upper echelons of the Tang family didn't care. As long as Tang Wanxiu could support the Tang family for a period of time, they would nurture an even younger generation. For example, Tang Hapu. Tang Hapu was the son of the Tang family's patriarch. He was only 14 years old this year, but his cultivation was already at the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. This cultivation speed was even faster than the genius disciples of the Mountain Sea sect. He was the only direct descendant of the Tang family's younger generation. In the future, the position of patriarch would very likely fall on him. The youth's success made Tang Hapu a little complacent. If he was a little arrogant in the Tang family, it would be fine, but now that he was outside and still looked down on everyone, it was a little stupid. This time, the Tang family had asked Tang Wanxiu to bring Tang Hapu out to travel specifically for others to see. Look, although the Tang family has lost Tang Hiyu, they still have Tang Wanxiu and Tang Hapu. The Tang family doesn't lack geniuses. After they came out, they heard that the Golden Wing Academy was going to hold a discussion and that there would definitely be a large number of spirit cultivators gathered. It was also a good opportunity for them to show their faces, so they rushed over. However, on the way, Tang Hapu saw a lot of injustice and insisted on helping out. They were delayed for a while, so they were late. When Tang Wanxiu saw that the Blood Robe Pavilion was actually washing the Golden Wing Academy with blood, she was glad that they were late. However, she didn't expect that Tang Hapu would actually help out again. Previously, people were afraid of the Tang family and didn't bother with Tang Hapu, which made him even more arrogant. Now, he didn't even put the Blood Robe Pavilion in his eyes. Thus, the scene just now appeared. After Tang Wanxiu heard Feng Shamo's words, her pretty face became gloomy. She couldn't believe that the Blood Robe Pavilion would attack them. However, not many of the assassins from the Blood Robe Pavilion came over. The blood-clothed assassins were currently surrounding and killing the Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators of the Golden Wing Academy. The black-clothed assassins were no match for Tang Wanxiu. In the end, only two figures rushed over. These two were Bing Shang and Lung Shiqi. Bing Shang came directly in front of Tang Wanxiu. Her body emitted a faint chill as she looked at her coldly. When Tang Wanxiu saw Bing Shang, she immediately recognized him. She said in a deep voice, "You are Bing Shang, the assassin who killed Tang Hiyu." Bing Shang's voice was as cold as ice. "That's right. Tang Hiyu died at my hands. You will die the same way." Then, Bing Shang clenched his fists, and cold air quickly condensed into a ferocious ice fist. Tang Wanxiu exclaimed, "Spirit caster?" It wasn't just him. Even Lung Shiqi couldn't help but look at Bing Shang a few more times. He had come here purely for the 10 times the reward that Feng Shaimo had mentioned. Since Bing Shang had targeted Tang Wanxiu, Lung Shiqi naturally went for Tang Hipu. However, when he rushed over, he saw Bing Shang make a move. He had never seen Bing Shang make a move before, so he didn't know that he was a spirit caster. When Lung Shiqi saw Bing Shang's method of condensing ice into a weapon, his heart moved. He thought to himself, he might not be a pure spirit caster. Maybe he's like me, using spirit techniques as a support method. As expected, Bing Shang immediately charged forward and started fighting with Tang Wanxiu. Tang Wanxiu used a sword, and her sword techniques were exquisite. However, Bing Shang's methods were even more peculiar and strange. You didn't know when he would use spirit techniques, making it impossible to guard against. Lung Shiqi watched their battle and realized something. At this time, Tang Hapu's voice sounded. "You, a small black-clothed assassin, dare to kill me? You dare to ignore me. You don't know life from death." Lung Shiqi withdrew his gaze and looked at Tang Hapu. He also didn't understand. They were both raised by the Tang family, but Tang Hapu's temperament was much worse than Tang Wanxiu's. If it wasn't for him shouting, how could Feng Shaimo have noticed them? Lung Shiqi didn't think too much about this. What he needed to do now was to kill Tang Hapu. Not only did he want the 10 times reward, but he also wanted to take revenge for Tang Haoqing's punch. Seeing Lung Shiqi walk over with killing intent, the 4 spirit transformation realm guards beside Tang Hapu all stood before him. Lung Shiqi pulled out his spirit sword. In a situation where he was outnumbered, it was more appropriate to use a sword technique. With a shake of his spirit sword, 5 streaks of invisible sword chi surged out in succession. Tang Hapu revealed a look of disdain when facing the invisible sword energies. He took out a light green longsword from his mustard seed bag. This longsword seemed to be made from a piece of jade. Tang Hapu gently waved the longsword in his hand and easily shattered the unblocking meridian sword energies. As for the other 4 people, they also used their own methods and weren't hit by the unblocking meridian sword energies. However, when they looked over, Lung Shichi was nowhere to be seen. One of the 4 guards suddenly felt a chill behind him. He quickly turned around and saw a ray of sword energy stabbing toward him. The man immediately turned pale with fright and shouted, "Save me!" Only then did the others react and quickly block. However, just as Lung Shichi's sword energy was about to reach them, Tang Hapu arrived first. The jade sword in Tang Hapu's hand released a gentle light, but it made Lung Shichi feel a sense of danger. Lung Shichi's mind moved, and 7 demonic patterns climbed onto the body of the spirit sword. He still stabbed at Tang Hapu. The 2 swords collided, and the sound of metal clashing echoed. There was even the sound of something breaking. Lung Shichi's pupils dilated slightly because an obvious crack had appeared on his spirit sword. The spirit sword in his hand was a level 3 spirit sword strengthened by an enhancement talisman on Blood Mist Island. It could be said that it had been with Lung Shichi for a long time and had been through hundreds of battles. It was already a little damaged. However, he had specially added 7 demonic patterns just now. Even so, it was almost destroyed. Lung Shichi glanced at Tang Hapu's jade sword and thought, "That sword is at least a level 4 spirit sword. It's even better than my scimitar." When Tang Hapu saw Lung Shichi's spirit sword crack, he grinned and said, "In front of my jade sword, you dare to use that piece of scrap metal to kill me? You dare to provoke me? Let's kill him together." The other 4 people immediately besieged Lung Shichi. A black fog rose under Lung Shichi's feet, and he used spirit steps to dodge the attacks. He said indifferently, "I want this sword." Chapter 183. Speaking of which, Lung Shichi could no longer fully display his strength with a level 3 spirit sword. This was also the reason why he often used a sword. Originally, he had planned to earn some spirit stones and blood droplets to exchange for a tier 4 spirit sword. Now, Tang Hapu had delivered a spirit sword to him in the blink of an eye. It was as if someone had delivered a pillow to him just when he was about to doze off. Lung Shichi's left palm lit up with a faint starlight. Then a burst of cold air surged under his feet and spread out. I spread. The turbulent cold air enveloped Tang Hapu and the others. The cold air formed a layer of ice crystals on their bodies. Only Tang Hapu's jade spirit chi made the cold air unable to gather. However, this was enough. In the next moment, Lung Shichi pointed his spiritual sword, and suddenly 12 phantoms appeared. Each of the phantoms used a different sword style, and each of them had a different sword chi, which dazzled the eyes. In an instant, the sword light flashed, and the sword chi was everywhere. Tang Hapu's expression finally changed at this time. The jade sword in his hand spun and formed a sword curtain in front of him. After 2 breaths, all the phantoms disappeared, and Lung Shichi's figure appeared behind the 5 people. Among the 5 people, 3 people fell to the ground with a plop and never got up again. The remaining 2 people were Tang Hapu and the person standing next to him. Tang Hapu's forehead had unknowingly exuded layers of cold sweat. Just now, he really felt the arrival of death. If his jade sword was not level 4 upper grade and blocked all the sword light and sword chi, he would not be far from death. However, Lung Shichi would not give him time to breathe. He put away his sword, and a purple light bloomed on the blade. Tang Hapu felt the killing intent coming from behind him and hurriedly crushed a jade pendant on his waist. At the same time, Lung Shichi also waved out a destructive half-moon purple light. It was so dazzling in the clear sky. The purple moonblade light cut through the sky and slashed towards Tang Hamu. After Tang Hamu crushed the jade pendant projected a faint silhouette. The figure was very blurry and looked like an old man, but the aura emitted by the figure made Lung Shiqi tremble, and the figure seemed to have a real consciousness. When he saw Lung Shiqi waving the purple moon blade, he immediately shouted, "Who dares to touch my Tang family? How dare you?" Under the shadow's roar, Lung Shiqi's saber light started to twist, and the sharpness of the saber light dissipated a little. Lung Shiqi was shocked, but he did not back down and still held his blade. The shadow stretched out a finger and pointed lightly. A light blue finger force shot out and shattered Lung Shiqi's half-moon rapid light slash. What was even more frightening was that the finger did not stop and continued to shoot towards Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi's body moved continuously, and he had to shift a few times before he was able to dodge the finger force. The finger force hit a rockery behind him, and in an instant, the rockery shattered into pieces. That finger energy had such terrifying power. However, Lung Shiqi also noticed that after shooting that finger energy, the figure became fainter. Tang Hapu took the opportunity to run, and his speed was not slow. Of course, Lung Shiqi could not let Tang Hapu escape. He directly sank into the ground and wanted to go around the figure to chase after Tang Hapu. But what he didn't expect was that the shadow lightly pointed again, and a finger force that was even thicker than the previous one penetrated the ground and shot towards Lung Shiqi without any delay. Lung Shiqi did not expect his aura to be locked. At this time, he was underground and could not use spirit steps, putting himself in danger. He could only use the hand of the earth to harden the soil, but the effect was minimal. At the same time, he took out his 3-part spear and charged towards the finger energy. With a muffled explosion, Lung Shiqi's figure broke out of the ground. His entire body was covered in a layer of silver-white soft armor, but his right arm was dripping with blood. At the most critical moment, he activated the silver-scaled, fire-armored crocodile's armor and sacrificed his 3-part spear to escape. Lung Shiqi returned to the ground, and the figure finally disappeared. His eyes focused as he stared at Tang Hapu, who had already run away. Then, a ball of demonic energy appeared in Lung Shiqi's left hand, and the demonic energy quickly condensed into 2 throwing knives. This was the first move of the demonic weapon manual, demonic weapon condensation. If this move was cultivated to perfection, it could condense a demonic weapon that was as sharp as a level 3 spiritual weapon. Of course, it was only very sharp. The demonic weapon condensed did not have the corresponding hardness and could only be used to attack. But even so, it was already very powerful, especially for Lung Shiqi. He had a level 3 spiritual skill, devouring light, throwing knives, but throwing knives and hidden weapons were very rare, and he had to spend spiritual stones to buy them. Now that he had the demonic weapon manual, he could make up for this. Lung Shiqi quickly condensed 2 throwing knives with his demonic energy. Then, with a shake of his wrist, the throwing knives immediately shot out. Along the way, the throwing knives continued to absorb the surrounding spirit energy, and even the light was sucked in, becoming as dark as ink. Tang Hapu also heard the sound behind him. Although he was panicking, he did not dare to turn around. At this time, he could only shout to Tang Wanqiu, "Save me! Save me!" Unfortunately, Tang Wanqiu's cultivation was forcefully broken through by external forces, and she did not have much battle experience. She had always been suppressed by Bing Shang. She could not even protect herself, so how could she care about him? As for the other Tang family disciple, even if he wanted to save him, it was too late. After the devouring light, throwing knives shot out, Lung Shiqi also used floating spirit steps to the extreme, quickly rushing towards Tang Hapu. Seeing that no one was coming to save him, Tang Hapu gritted his teeth and forced out a few drops of essence blood from his fingertips. Essence blood was the most important blood in a spirit cultivator's body. Generally speaking, the amount of essence blood was related to the strength of a spirit cultivator's body. Essence blood was extremely important, and once it was lost, it would be very difficult to make up for it. Right now, Tang Hapu was at his wit's end and could only use his essence blood to fight for his life. His essence blood dripped onto the unadorned jade sword, and the originally jade-colored sword instantly turned blood red. Tang Hapu suddenly turned around with the blood-red sword in his hand. Following that, several blood-red sword auras fell, breaking the two devouring light throwing knives. However, Tang Hapu was not feeling well either. At this moment, his face was pale without a trace of blood, and he was panting heavily, as if the few things just now had exhausted his blood and spirit energy. What was even more terrifying was that although he broke the devouring light throwing knives, Lung Shichi was coming at him again. Lung Shichi's figure was as fast as the wind, and was only a few steps slower than the devouring light throwing knives. From afar, his left hand turned into a pitch-black ghost claw. It was the ghost jade claw that he had not used in a long time. Following that, he opened his 5 claws, and demonic chi appeared around him. Demonic chi and baleful chi all gathered on his ghost claw, forming a 5-meter-tall ghost claw image. 4th level spirit technique, Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw. The ghost claw tore through the air, bringing with it an ear-piercing sound. Tang Hapu still wanted to struggle, but just as the Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw approached, a wave of baleful chi entered his body. His brain was invaded by the baleful chi, and he immediately became delirious, unable to use any techniques. The demon claw descended, and suddenly blood spurted out, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Lung Shichi caught the jade sword with his right hand and pulled off the mustard seed bag on Tang Hapu's body and muttered, "I already said, this sword, I want it." Chapter 184. Tang Hapu had been killed by Lung Shichi in a short period of time. Even after using his trump card, he was still killed. This scene naturally fell into the eyes of all the cultivators who had come to participate in the discussion. Originally, they thought that the Bloodcloth Pavilion would not make a move against the Tang family. However, not only did they make a move, but the Tang family's direct descendant, Tang Hapu, had also been killed. Some people in the crowd also recognized the figure that had appeared. It was the current head of the Tang family, Tang Haoquang, an expert at the unity of Heaven Realm. No one knew what method Tang Haoquang had used to attach a portion of his spirit force to the jade pendant. The power of his 2 fingers was comparable to the strongest attack of an early-stage spirit pulse realm cultivator. Even so, Tang Hapu had still been killed by a black-clothed assassin. This caused everyone to be stunned. If it had been the Bloodcloth assassin who had killed Tang Hapu, it would have been fine, but it was only a black-clothed assassin at the spirit transformation realm. Moreover, in terms of cultivation, the black-clothed assassin and Tang Hapu were both at the 7th layer of the spirit transformation realm, but the difference in their combat strength was like heaven and earth. In addition, the black-clothed assassin spirit techniques were more exquisite than the last. Not only was he proficient in sword techniques, blade techniques, and ghost claws, but he was also proficient in hidden weapons. He had even cultivated spirit techniques. This was not what shocked them the most. What shocked them the most was that the black-clothed assassin had actually dared to kill Tang Hapu. Moreover, he had used such a cruel method to leave him without a complete corpse. There were many people here who could kill Tang Hapu, but even if Tang Hapu was standing there with his head held high, they wouldn't dare to kill him. This was because Tang Hapu was a direct descendant of the Tang family. This was the deterrence of identity. Who is this black-clothed assassin? He actually dared to kill Tang Hapu. Is this a disciple raised by a top force? Too powerful. This child will definitely be someone special in the future. He, a direct descendant of the Tang family, died at the hands of the Bloodcloth Pavilion. This will be a good show to watch. It should be said that he died at the hands of the Bloodcloth Pavilion again. The Tang family has become more and more powerful in recent years. They deserve it. That's right. The Tang clan has lost 2 good seedlings in a row. I'm afraid they won't be able to replace the yellow. While everyone was discussing in low voices, Tang Wanxiu naturally saw the tragic deaths of Tang and Pu. Her heart immediately sank to the bottom. She was the main person in charge of this trip, so she naturally had to bear the responsibility. Now that Tang Hapu was dead, even if she escaped back home, she would have to face severe punishment from her family. Bing Shong threw out a few punches, and each punch carried a bone-piercing chill. Tang Wanqiu made a strange movement. She placed her spiritual sword horizontally in front of her chest, and then actually shattered her own spiritual sword. Immediately after, the fragments of the spirit sword fell down like rain, shattering Icy Death's fist shadow and continuing to shoot forward without losing any momentum. Bing Shong clasped her hands together, and a large amount of cold air condensed into an ice shield in front of her to block the spirit sword fragments. However, Tang Wanqiu took advantage of this time to emit a faint layer of blood aura all over her body. Her speed soared as she flipped over the wall of the Golden Wing Academy to escape. Bing Shong didn't seem to be good at speed. After hesitating for a moment, she didn't chase after her. At this time, Lung Shiqi had also killed the last Tang clan disciple and collected all their heads. These were all merits and resources. Bing Shong walked to Lung Shiqi and asked, "You also cultivate cold air?" Lung Shiqi didn't deny it and nodded. Naturally, he couldn't escape Bing Shong's eyes when he used Ice Spread. "Let's spar when we have time." After Bing Shong finished speaking, she directly rushed to another spiritual pulse realm cultivator of the Golden Wing Academy. Lung Shiqi secretly raised his eyebrows. He had never come into contact with Bing Shong, but from these two sentences, she seemed to be a cultivation maniac. Next, he looked around. At this time, almost all the low-level disciples of the Golden Wing Academy were dead, and cold corpses could be seen everywhere. In the spiritual pulse realm, there were only 3 people left in the academy who were struggling to hold on, but it seemed that it wouldn't take long for them to become corpses. As for He Liangkai, because he used his trump card, he firmly suppressed Duya. However, Duya was extremely slippery and didn't fight with He Liangkai head-on at all. He only suffered a small injury. However, several blood-clothed assassins rushed over to help. He Liangkai's road to defeat was doomed. Lung Shiqi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Because he couldn't intervene in the battle of the 4 realms of heaven, and the low-level disciples of the Golden Wing Academy were all dead. He didn't know what to do. He looked at the other black-clothed assassins who had gathered and surrounded He Liangkai and Duan Jiming. However, they didn't dare to go forward, just to prevent the 2 from escaping. Lung Shiqi also walked over and then looked at the battle outside the academy gate. It was the battle between Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books. The 2 of them had already destroyed the magnificent gate of the Golden Wing Academy. Feng Shamo's blade power was sharp, and the old man of Mountain of Books' attack was majestic. No one dared to approach the place where the 2 of them were fighting. Lung Shiqi quietly opened his supercilious eyes. He wanted to observe the battle of the Masters of Gang Spirit Realm more clearly. The battle between Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books seemed to be evenly matched. However, the more it was so, the more uncomfortable the old man of Books felt. He had a feeling that his decades of cultivation were in vain. Gradually, his heart was filled with all kinds of complicated emotions, which finally turned into hatred. He hated those high and mighty spirit cultivation sections. He hated those geniuses who had low cultivation but were arrogant because of their noble status. He hated that Feng Shamo, who was not half as old as him and whose cultivation was not as good as his, could be evenly matched with him. When he saw that the disciples of the Golden Wing Academy were basically slaughtered and his good friend He Liangkai almost died, he hated Feng Shamo and the blood-clothed pavilion even more. The old man of Books' face unconsciously became a little ferocious, and a very thin black gas appeared between his eyebrows. Seeing this, Feng Shamo gave a strange smile. Then, he waved his saber casually. There was no terrifying saber light or surging saber aura. It was just a very ordinary saber. However, when this extremely ordinary saber came, a surge of hatred suddenly burst out, which instantly aroused the hatred of the old man of Books. The two waves of hatred mixed together, which instantly covered the old man of Book's eyes with a layer of black fog. He stood there in a daze, letting Feng Shamo chop off his head. The old man of Book's lead, Jianyuan, who was at the third level of Gang Spirit Realm, was killed by Feng Shamo. Thousands of onlookers exclaimed one after another. When Feng Shamo walked in with the old man of Book's head, the crowd quickly quieted down. When He Liangkai saw this scene, his mentality collapsed instantly. He lost his mind, and Di would not let go of this opportunity. His whole body turned into a black line and pierced through He Liangkai's heart, directly penetrating a fist-sized bloody hole. At the same time, the elder of the library Duan Jiming was also killed by the other blood-clothed assassins. At this point, the Golden Wing Academy was completely annihilated. Then, Feng Shamo waved his hand, and a group of assassins quickly plundered all kinds of resources of the Golden Wing Academy. Then, they retreated like a tide, leaving the crowd still in a daze. The Golden Wing Academy was gone just like that. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.